Chapter 525. The reason why Qin Yu had returned to the God world from the Qian Kuan world was because of the spatial power of his Qian Kuan world. Not only could it connect to the point where he had left the God world, but it could also extend 100 meters in all directions. According to what Qin Yu knew, as long as the spatial energy of the universe world could reach the area, he would be able to reach it in an instant. He was able to instantly return to his original position from the universal world, but at the same time, he was also able to instantly go from the universal world to a place 100 meters away from the deity realm. If I instantly return to the Qian Kuan world, and then return to the deity world from the Qian Kuan world, the area where the spatial energy spreads out will be the area where I can instantly reach. Doesn't that mean I can teleport 100 meters away? Qin Yu was overjoyed. In the divine world, teleportation was a divine ability that only divine kings and above could possess. This was because the spatial restrictions in the divine realm were too great. Only those who had completely mastered the spatial laws would be able to teleport. However, Qin Yu, as the creator of the Qian Kuan world, could rely on the spatial power of the Qian Kuan world to achieve short-distance teleportation. No, I don't need to go through the trouble of returning to the universe world. I just need to control the spatial energy of the universe world to descend into the divine world and spread it around my body. As long as I am within 100 meters of myself, I can teleport there. Qin Yu's mind immediately came up with a method to use the power of space. That's not all. The spatial power of the universal world isn't just limited to this. I can also use this spatial power to bind others, just like the space domain. Qin Yu's eyes lit up. Furthermore, the universal world is still growing. It's still in its early stages, but it can already spread out to a distance of 100 meters. As it grows, the area it can spread out will also increase. It's just that there aren't many spatial powers that can connect to the God realm right now, so it probably won't be very effective in binding people. Qin Yu's mind raced like lightning. This was the God realm, and the Qian Kuan world was an independent world. The spatial energy of two different worlds, the spatial energy of the universal world, would definitely be greatly reduced when used in the divine world. It was far from being as powerful as it was in the Qian Kuan world, but even if it was greatly reduced, Qin Yu was still very satisfied. Using the universal world's spatial energy to bind others, even if it's inferior to a mid-level heavenly deity's spatial domain, I reckon it's not far off. Qin Yu thought in his heart. In just a few breaths of time, Qin Yu had already thought of a lot of things. At the same time, Qin Yu had also thought of many more methods to fight against others. Qin Yu, speak. What method did you use just now to dodge my sure kill attack? The black dragon's gloomy eyes, which had been filled with killing intent, suddenly blazed as he stared fixedly at Qin Yu. Qin Yu could instantly disappear. Even if it wasn't teleportation, it was likely very close to it. Once one learned this sort of remarkable ability, one would be able to fight against high-level heavenly deities. Why are high-level heavenly deities so powerful? As long as one was able to instantly disappear, the high-level heavenly deity's ability would naturally be useless. Black Dragon's heart began to tremble. He really wanted to obtain Qin Yu's sacred art. What method? This is my master's secret. Qin Yu directly said. At this moment, Qin Yu had already made his decision. No matter what, the ability to teleport cannot be revealed unless it is a life-and-death situation. Qin Yu knew how abnormal the ability to teleport that only God Kings possessed was. With this ability, if he were to wait until his divine spear waning snow absorbed the dark and yellow energy, he might even be able to fight against high-level heavenly deities. Without sufficient strength, he absolutely could not let the outside world know about this abnormal ability. A secret that won't be passed on? Then, Qin Yu, is it fine if I become your disciple? Black Dragon's eyes shined as he looked to Qin Yu. In order to obtain this ability that he suspected to be teleportation, Black Dragon no longer cared about anything else. The use of this ability was much more important than a high-level heavenly divine artifact. Become my disciple? Qin Yu shook his head. My master only accepts me as his disciple. Furthermore, did you think that you would be able to become my master's disciple just because you wanted to? Black Dragon suddenly woke up from his stupor. That's right. this Qin Yu possesses a high-level heavenly divine artifact. To be able to bestow a high-level heavenly divine artifact to his disciple, how could he possibly be an ordinary person? Furthermore, to be able to make a low-level heavenly deity use an ability comparable to teleportation, a master like him is at the very least a God-King level expert. In the entire divine realm, countless people wish to become the disciple of a God-King. Indeed, it is not a master that I can become just because I want to. Black Dragon's scarlet sharp eyebrows were knitted together. He was pondering non-stop. In that case, Qin Yu, I'll become your disciple. Black Dragon clenched his teeth and said. Qin Yu's strength was much weaker than his. If it was in the past, Black Dragon would also not be willing to become Qin Yu's disciple after killing him. However, the ability that Qin Yu displayed earlier was truly too abnormal. It was truly too attractive to Black Dragon. Qin Yu was stunned. Become my disciple? Become my disciple? Qin Yu shook his head and smiled. Black Dragon, this remarkable ability is called So Close Yet Worlds Apart. It is a secret ability that my sex heaven and earth sex successive generations of disciples did not pass on. Furthermore, in order to pass on this remarkable ability, one must obtain my master's permission. In a blink of an eye, Qin Yu came up with a lie. So close yet worlds apart? Black Dragon's eyes shined. Qin Yu nodded. That's right, So Close Yet Worlds Apart was created by my master after many years of research. It is meant for heavenly deity-level experts to use. Although it's not as fast as teleportation, it's not far from it. Right, it's not far from it. Black Dragon felt as if there were ants crawling on his heart. He truly wanted to learn this ability called So Close Yet Worlds Apart. This Black Dragon's pursuit of strength was not something that Qin Yu could understand. Black Dragon had ascended from the Devil Murder World. The Devil Murder World was different from the immortal, devil and demon realm. The Devil Murder World was a world of unceasing slaughter. Every single child that was born in the Devil Murder World, for the sake of their relatives or for the sake of their own status, would painstakingly train and kill unceasingly. Every single giant in the Devil Murder World was a valiant character proficient in slaughter and battle. When Black Dragon came out from the Black Dragon Pool, the footwork that he used to rush toward Qin Yu was the footwork that Black Dragon had comprehended after coming to the Divine Realm. Black Dragon had been in the Divine Realm for all these years. He had always wanted to become a true expert. The people from the Devil Murder World were practically all ruthless and cruel people. Being rejected by Qin Yu, Black Dragon's scarlet eyebrows started to crease. A sinister plan naturally appeared in his mind. If I were to continue to endure like this, who knows how many years it would take for me to become a character that could call the wind and summon the rain in the Divine Realm. Once I obtained this So Close Yet Worlds Apart ability, I would even be able to kill high-level heavenly deities. In an instant, he arrived beside a high-level heavenly deity and gave him a heavy attack. The reason why high-level heavenly deities were stronger than mid-level heavenly deities was because of their comprehension of the spatial laws. As for their pure attack power, there was not much of a difference. After killing Qin Yu and using the soul-seizing technique to obtain his soul memories, I would naturally learn the So Close Yet Worlds Apart ability. At the same time, I would also be able to obtain that high-quality heavenly divine artifact. Taking risks. The greater the benefits, the more willing some people would be to take risks. Even if they were to risk their lives. After killing Qin Yu, learning the So Close Yet Worlds Apart, and obtaining the divine sword Scarlet Blood, he would be second only to God Kings. Humph, so what if his master is a God King? It's impossible for God Kings to search the divine realm with their divine awareness all the time. In the divine realm, there is simply no way to send messages. If I were to kill Qin Yu would also be unable to send a message to his master. If I were to kill Qin Yu, the probability of me being discovered by his master is very low. However, if I were to succeed, Black Dragon began to become resolute. This So Close Yet Worlds Apart, and the divine sword Scarlet Blood were truly too alluring. Rather than becoming a small bandit leader in the divine realm, it would be better for him to seize this opportunity and move about unhindered in the divine realm. At that time, I will rely on a power. With the strength of the so close yet worlds apart that I have learned, for example, Mount Blood Demon or Azura Sea. The God Kings of the Azura Sea will definitely protect me. Even if Qin Yu's master were to find out about this, what could he possibly do to me? After careful consideration, Black Dragon made the most important decision he had made since coming to the Divine Realm. He would kill a disciple that he suspected to be a God King expert. If he were to succeed, he would be someone second only to God Kings. If he were to fail, his soul would scatter. Good, I'll do this. When Black Dragon made his decision, he looked to his surroundings. However, he discovered that Qin Yu's figure had already disappeared. At the moment when he was pondering, Qin Yu had already escaped. Earlier, Black Dragon had a request for Qin Yu. Thus, he had even shrunk his spatial domain to his surroundings. Qin Yu had seized this opportunity to hide within the surrounding sea of white pure flames. In this great formation array, other than Black Dragon's surroundings, there were a large amount of white pure flames everywhere else. This caused the visibility to be extremely low. Black Dragon was simply unable to discover Qin Yu within the sea of white pure flames. In this divine great formation array, even one's divine awareness would not be able to carefully determine Black Dragon's location. What was Qin Yu doing? Within the sea of white pure flames, Qin Yu's figure was teleporting non-stop with a lightning-like speed. He would disappear from one place and reappear in another. As Qin Yu was the master of this great formation array, he naturally knew where Black Dragon was. Thus, Qin Yu would definitely not teleport to Black Dragon's side. Sure enough, it is as I thought. The universal world's spatial energy is capable of allowing me to teleport perfectly. Furthermore, it is also capable of forming a spatial domain. Merely, the binding power of this spatial domain ought to be inferior to a mid-level heavenly deity's true spatial domain. Qin Yu sighed in his heart. In the divine realm, the universal world's spatial energy was rejected by the divine realm's spatial energy. Otherwise, it wouldn't only be able to cover an area of 100 meters. How did Black Dragon get out of the great formation array? Qin Yu was puzzled. This was a killing formation, not an illusion formation or a trapping formation. Thus, it was naturally very easy for Black Dragon to get out. Qin Yu, do you dare to fight me head-on? Black Dragon's voice sounded. At this moment, at the edge of the 100-mile circumference Black Dragon pool, 5 blurs emerged from the bottom of the lake with lightning-like speed. These 5 blurs began to surround the great formation array from the side. If one was powerful enough, one would be able to clearly see that these 5 blurs all had short scarlet hair, scarlet eyebrows, and the appearance of a youngster. That's right, every single one of them was a Black Dragon. These 5 Black Dragons all held a black stick in their hands. Chapter 526. The 5 Black Dragons were all mid-level heavenly deities. The long sticks in their hands were all mid-level heavenly divine artifacts. The speed of these 5 Black Dragons was extremely fast. Before Qin Yu even left the formation array, they had already surrounded the formation array. 6 Lord Black Dragons. Everyone who saw this scene was dumbfounded. 1 was the original Lord Black Dragon, and 5 had appeared later. There were actually 6 of them. Moreover, their appearances and weapons were exactly the same. In the distance, Mei Ji and Taoist Lu Su's expression changed. They glanced at each other. Mei Ji, Lord Black Dragon, has actually used his 6 clones. No, that's not it. What Lord Black Dragon has set up is Lord Black Dragon's strongest 6 directions extermination formation. In that case, wouldn't there still be? Taoist Lu Su's gaze was fixed on the ground where the 6 Black Dragons were located. Mei Ji's expression was also solemn. That Qin Yu actually forced Lord Black Dragon to use his full strength, activating the 6 directions extermination formation. In the entire Yuchi city, other than the Yuchi city city master, that high-level heavenly deity Lord Yuchi Gonglon, no one else possesses this sort of strength. 6 directions annihilation formation. This was the Black Dragon's strongest move. This great array wasn't considered profound, but in the hands of the black dragon, it was able to display astonishing strength. This was because the black dragon could transform into 9 people. These 9 people were all doppelgangers. As long as one doppelganger did not die, Black Dragon would not die. The black dragon's true form was the 9-headed black dragon. It had brought about an endless amount of carnage in the devil murder realm. As a mutated monstrous beast, the 9-headed black dragon was able to create 9 clones that could exist independently. All of them possessed the strength of a mid-level heavenly deity. Below the ground, surrounded by the 6 black dragons. Beneath the surface, there were 3 tunnels. These 3 tunnels just so happened to be connected from the black dragon pool. The 3 black dragons were standing at the end of the tunnels. The 3 tunnels had been opened up by the 3 black dragons in a short period of time. There were 6 black dragons on the ground. Underground, 3 black dragons. The 9 black dragons formed a perfect 6 directions extermination formation. Each of them had a spatial domain of several tens of meters, and when the 9 of them combined, their spatial domain could cover a distance of nearly 1,000 meters. The 6 black dragons on the ground were rather far from each other, and Qin Yu had just stepped out of the killing formation's range. As soon as he exited the array, Qin Yu saw a black dragon in front of him. "Black dragon, you want to fight me head-on?" Qin Yu said aloud, but just as he spoke, Qin Yu seemed to sense something and looked to the right, only to see another person in the distance. Crimson hair, crimson eyebrows, the appearance of a cold youth, and the long staff in his hand. Another black dragon? Qin Yu couldn't help but turn his head to look in front of him. Qin Yu suddenly looked behind him, to the left, to the front, to the left, to the back. His lightning-fast sweep caused Qin Yu to break out in a cold sweat. One, another black dragon, a total of 6 black dragons. Furthermore, these 6 black dragons all had 6 black rods. Even their auras were the same. 6 mid-level heavenly deities and 6 mid-level heavenly divine artifacts? Qin Yu was truly confused. Exactly what was going on? How could there be so many identical heavenly divine artifacts? Was it an illusion? Qin Yu didn't have time to think because the 6 black dragons attacked at the same time. Qin Yu! With a loud shout, the 6 black dragons all moved at the same time. Each and every one of the black dragons created several tens of afterimages. In an instant, there were several hundred afterimages. And at the same moment, spatial domain? Qin Yu discovered that he was unable to move. Something's wrong. I am over 100 meters away from each and every one of them. This spatial domain has such a large range? Even now, Qin Yu still didn't know that when the 9 black dragons joined hands, their spatial domain had a range of over 1,000 meters. At this moment, I am not in the formation. There are still several 100,000 people watching from afar. If I were to use teleportation, I would definitely be discovered by them. This matter would be spread out. No, teleportation absolutely cannot be spread out. Qin Yu absolutely did not wish to expose his ability to teleport. That was because Qin Yu knew what the consequences would be if he were to reveal it. Faced with the fatal attack of his opponents, even if he was unable to block it, he could at most hide in his universal world and wait for a period of time before coming out. He absolutely could not use teleportation. If he were to suddenly disappear, others might suspect that he possessed a spatial divine artifact. Although spatial divine artifacts were extremely precious in the divine realm, they were not as shocking as a heavenly deity capable of teleportation. Qin Yu, you're dead meat. The 9 black dragons were all excited. At this moment, Qin Yu had not discovered that there were 3 more black dragons below the formation that were about to attack. Suddenly, a sharp and clear voice sounded. "Tan Zhou, stop." A yellow-clothed figure was floating over from afar. It was Huang Jing. Huang Jing gently extended her right hand and made a grabbing motion with her right hand. Qin Yu was able to clearly see that a space close to 10 meters within the 6 directions extermination formation had completely shattered. Numerous black cracks appeared before his eyes. Space shattered. The 6 black dragons acted as if they had been paralyzed. Their movements came to a sudden stop. With shock, they looked to the yellow-clothed woman floating over from afar. Who is this woman? She's actually capable of destroying space. Since when did Yuchi City have a female high-level heavenly deity? The Black Dragons knew very well that his opponent had already been lenient toward him. If she were to be ruthless, she would likely be able to directly destroy one of his clones. With merely 9 attacks, all 9 of his clones would be finished. Regardless of how unwilling they were, the Black Dragons had still stopped. Tanjio, there's no need for your other 3 clones to continue hiding underground, said Huang Jing with a light smile. At this moment, the Black Dragons could only try their hardest to squeeze out a smile. The 3 clones underground appeared beside Qin Yu. Upon seeing these 3 Black Dragons, Qin Yu was unable to refrain himself from sweating cold sweat. At this moment, one of the Black Dragons turned to Taoist Lu Su and ordered, "Lu Su, order everyone to move away. Do not obstruct us here." "Yes, Lord Black Dragon." Taoist Lu Su immediately accepted the order. Under the orders of Taoist Lu Su and Mei Ji, the majestic several 100,000 deities immediately dispersed. Only the 9 Black Dragons, Huang Jing and Qin Yu, remained beside the great formation array that Qin Yu had set up. "Qin Yu, we meet again," said Huang Jing to Qin Yu with a smile. Qin Yu also expressed his thanks. "Miss Huang Jing, thank you for saving my life." "Oh, that's right. Why did you call this Black Dragon Tanjio?" Huang Jing looked to the Black Dragons. "Tanjio, you can say it yourself." The 9 Black Dragons actually gathered together at the same time. After that, the 9 of them fused into a single person. At the same time, 9 black sticks appeared in the hands of this Black Dragon. These 9 black sticks became shorter. Each stick was only a foot long. The Black Dragon rubbed his hands together and the 9 sticks formed a 9-section whip. "My true form is that of a 9-headed Black Dragon. Thus, I call myself Lord Black Dragon. When I was born, my parents gave me the name Tanjio." At this moment, the 9-headed Black Dragon Tanjio did not possess the slightest bit of arrogance. Faced with a high-level heavenly deity, he did not dare to be arrogant. "So that's the case. 9-headed Black Dragon." Qin Yu was also able to guess that this Tanjio's parents must have given him the name Jiu, because their child had 9 heads. This 9-headed Black Dragon Tanjio looked to Huang Jing. "May I know your lordship's name?" "My surname is Huang," said Huang Jing indifferently. "Lady Huang." The 9-section whip in the 9-headed Black Dragon Tanjio's hand shook and turned into a long stick. "May I know how Lady Huang knew of my name?" "In the divine realm, there are not many people who know of my real name." Huang Jing lightly smiled and said, "It was the commander of the Yuchi city's army, Lu Yushi, who told me of your name." "Lu Yushi?" Tanjio's expression changed. Huang Jing lightly smiled and said, "I chatted with Lu Yushi for a long time. Only then did I know that you, the bandit leader Tanjio, actually came from the devil murder realm at the same time as Lu Yushi. You both ascended to the divine realm at the same time. Furthermore, you both reached the mid-level heavenly deity level at the same time. And now, one of you is the bandit leader while the other is the commander of the Yuchi city's army. Haha, this matter is truly strange." Qin Yu looked to Tanjio. He was able to sense that there was a special relationship between Tanjio and the commander of the Yuchi city's army, Lu Yushi. "Lady Huang, I do not know what Lu Yushi said to your lordship for your lordship to personally come here." Tanjio's expression became a bit unnatural. He was cursing in his heart. "Lu Yushi, you bastard. If you have the ability, then come and fight with me yourself. Why did you have a high-level heavenly deity come here?" Huang Jing lightly smiled and said, "Tanjio, I presume you've already guessed what he said. Why did you hide yourself in the Black Dragon Pool for so many years?" "What did he tell me?" Tanjio's eyes jumped. His pair of scarlet sword-like eyebrows were knitted together. A baleful aura was born between his brows. "Lady Huang, must you insist on fighting over it?" Tanjio slowly said. Qin Yu was able to tell from Tan Jiu's words that this Tan Jiu seemed to have hidden himself in the Black Dragon Pool for countless years for the sake of a certain item. Furthermore, it seemed that only that Lu Yushi and Tan Jiu knew about this information. Huang Jing smiled indifferently. Tan Jiu, that thing might be extremely important to you and Lu Yushi. It might also be somewhat attractive to me. However, the two of you have spent countless years trying to obtain it. I am also not someone who will snatch away what you love. Thus, I will naturally not interfere. Between you and Lu Yushi, it will depend on your own ability as to who will obtain it. Nine-headed black dragon Tan Jiu immediately heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he began to suspect the background of this yellow-clothed woman. Even for high-level heavenly deities, there were not many that would not care about that treasure. Furthermore, Lu Yushi had told this woman about this secret. That bastard Lu Yushi, how could he be willing to tell this woman about this secret? Could it be that Lu Yushi wants to curry favor with this woman? Tan Jiu looked to Huang Jing. He and Lu Yushi had been fighting since the Devil Murder Realm. Even now, after countless years, the two of them were still equally matched. Thus, he naturally knew about Lu Yushi's temperament. The reason why I have come here today is actually to see this friend of mine. Huang Jing looked to Qin Yu. Qin Yu was unable to refrain his shock. Miss Huang Jing Yu, I obtained news that a heavenly deity had appeared in Mount Bewitchu. The time that heavenly deity appeared was close to the time when you and I separated. Later on, I heard that this heavenly deity had even killed his way to the Black Dragon Pool. Thus, I suspected that it was you. Upon seeing it, I discovered that it was indeed you. Huang Jing said with a smile. Qin Yu, you ought to have just reached the heavenly deity level, right? Might you be interested in going to Mount Dazzling Gold to train? Chapter 527. Go to Mount Dazzling Gold? In Qin Yu's heart, the center of authority and power in the eastern region of the Divine Realm was this floating mountain, Mount Dazzling Gold. The utmost East Sage Emperor and close to 10,000 heavenly deities were also gathered here. Sharpening the blade will not delay the work of chopping materials. It would be better for me to concentrate on training in the array path. It would not be too late for me to go to Mount Dazzling Gold after I have some accomplishments. Qin Yu thought in his heart. At the same time as he was studying the array path, his soul's level was also slowly increasing. According to the experience left behind by the craftsman god Cheho Yuan, once one reached the 8th level of formation array, one would be a peak high-level heavenly deity. Qin Yu looked to the yellow-clothed woman before him. Suddenly, he seemed to be able to see the long hair fluttering Li air. Ah! Qin Yu was suddenly woken up. That's right, this Huang Jing is the large group captain of Mount Dazzling Gold and a high-level heavenly deity. She should be someone from the core circle of the utmost East Sage Emperor's power. She most definitely knows about the surnames of the 8 great families of the Divine Realm. She might even know about Li air. Uncle Fu was the butler of the bewitching god temple, a puppet created by the craftsman god Cheho Yuan. It was normal for him to not know about many secrets. However, this Huang Jing was someone from the core power of Mount Dazzling Gold. Qin Yu, what are you still thinking about? Huang Jing said with a light smile. In the vast divine realm, the 8 great sage emperors all reside in their own places. You've already reached the heavenly deity level. If you continue to work hard in a small place like Yuchi City, your accomplishments would not be too great. In Yuchi City, a low-level heavenly deity is already extraordinary. However, in Mount Dazzling Gold, any random person would be a heavenly deity. Huang Jing stared at Qin Yu. I believe that you should not be willing to stay in the territory of Yuchi City, right? Hearing what Huang Jing said, Qin Yu's heart was moved. When he had just arrived in the Divine Realm, his strength was indeed relatively weak. However, his stellar transformation had reached the Universe Realm. He had created a new world. With his universal world, Qin Yu was able to teleport using spatial energy. In addition, the divine spear waning snow was absorbing the qi of heaven and earth. Its attack power was also shocking. Indeed, the current Yuchi city is no longer a challenge to me. The number of people that could be considered as my opponent can be counted with one hand. Qin Yu sighed in his heart. Ordinary low-level heavenly deities were simply no match for him. Even if it was a mid-level heavenly deity, he would still be able to fight against them. If he were to risk his life and use teleportation, then it would indeed be very difficult for him to kill Qin Yu in close combat. Only at this moment did the nine-headed black dragon Tan Jiu become certain that the yellow-clothed woman before him was actually from Mount Dazzling Gold. Tan Jiu became even more careful with this Huang Jing. At this moment, he tried to persuade Qin Yu, since Lord Huang Jing has personally invited you, you should accept. That's good. Qin Yu was just about to agree when he suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Huang Jing looked to Qin Yu with a puzzled expression. Qin Yu started to frown. He recalled a bad thing. This Huang Jing thinks that I have reached the low-level heavenly deity level. However, I am actually only a high-level deity. I am only able to fly by relying on the assistance of Lu Xing's tear. The energy that I am currently using is divine energy. Huang Jing currently thinks that I have just reached the low-level heavenly deity level and have yet to transform my divine energy. However, if I continue to use divine energy, after arriving at Mount Dazzling Gold for a long period of time, I reckon that it would arouse the suspicions of many people. Furthermore, Mount Dazzling Gold is the utmost East Sage Emperor's territory. That utmost East Sage Emperor's strength is unfathomable. If I am to be suspected by him, it would be very troublesome. Qin Yu immediately thought of this problem. Since he was using divine energy, how could he possibly make the close to 10,000 heavenly deities of Mount Dazzling Gold not suspect him? Exactly how long would it take to reach the low-level heavenly deity level from the peak of the high-level heavenly deity level? Qin Yu was also very anxious and helpless. From the peak of the high-level deity level to the low-level heavenly deity level, this was a checkpoint where tens of billions and hundreds of billions of deities of the divine realm were trapped. If the time needed to break through was too long, if he were to not use his divine energy for a long period of time, he would definitely be suspected by the people of Mount Dazzling Gold. Miss Huang Jing, I also have a trace of expectation for Mount Dazzling Gold. Merely, the current me is still too weak. I have yet to even completely transform my divine energy. I think it wouldn't be too late for me to go to Mount Dazzling Gold after my strength increases a bit. Qin Yu persuaded. Huang Jing nodded. She seemed to be a bit disappointed. However, she still displayed a smile. Good, when the day comes that you are willing to go, you merely need to go to Mount Dazzling Gold and report my name. Thank you, Miss Huang Jing. Qin Yu said gratefully. Although Qin Yu was saying these things, there was a matter that was bothering him in his heart. Exactly what are the 8 great families of the divine realm? Which family does Zhongli belong to? Qin Yu wanted to ask Huang Jing. After seeing the lean youngster black dragon beside him, Qin Yu looked to Huang Jing and said via divine awareness voice transmission. Miss Huang Jing, I have a matter that I wish to ask you. Merely, I am worried that I might be too abrupt. The divine realm's most mysterious, most ancient and most powerful 8 great families had always kept their surnames a secret. Even if Huang Jing knew about it, how could she possibly tell him, an ordinary nobody that she had only met a few times? Hearing Qin Yu's divine awareness voice transmission, Huang Jing was slightly surprised. She also understood that the matter that Qin Yu wanted to ask might be rather secretive. Lady Huang Jing, the two of you can chat first. I still have matters to discuss with this Qin Yu later. Seeing the expressions of Qin Yu and Huang Jing, Black Dragon Tan Jiu guessed that the two of them had a secret matter to discuss. Thus, he immediately walked several miles away from them. A series of ripples appeared in the space surrounding Huang Jing. Immediately, the surrounding space was controlled by Huang Jing. Qin Yu, if there's anything that you want to say, feel free to say it. In this domain, outsiders will definitely not be able to hear our conversation, said Huang Jing with a light smile. I truly wish to know what you want to ask me. Qin Yu took a small breath and then stared at Huang Jing. Huang Jing also felt that the atmosphere was unusual. The smile on her face was no longer present. Miss Huang Jing, I merely wish to ask about the Divine Realm's 8 great families, the families that the 8 great sage emperors belong to. What are their surnames? Is there anyone with the surname Jiang? Which power is it? Qin Yu asked in a single breath. After he finished asking, Qin Yu felt that both of his hands were slightly trembling. Even his muscles were slightly trembling as he stood there. Nervous. Qin Yu truly felt very nervous. He merely looked at Huang Jing and waited for her answer. Huang Jing's expression slightly changed. Looking at Qin Yu, her pair of curved willowy eyebrows knitted together. Puzzled, she asked, You're asking about the surnames of the 8 great families? Why are you asking this? Qin Yu's face was slightly red. He felt as if he was an ant on top of a pot. Miss Huang Jing, I merely wish to know. This matter is very important to me. Can you tell me exactly which 8 surnames are there? And which one is the surname Jiang? Qin Yu repeatedly asked. At the same time, the speed of his speech became faster and faster. Even Huang Jing was able to sense the sense of urgency brought forth by Qin Yu. I'm sorry, I'm too anxious. Miss Huang Jing, if this matter is too important to tell me, I won't force you. If you're able to tell me, then I'm begging you. Please, can you please tell me this? Qin Yu looked at Huang Jing with longing. Huang Jing was silent for a few breaths of time. Then, she smiled slightly. All right, I'll tell you this matter. However, I hope that you won't spread this matter outside. The surnames of the 8 great families are not allowed to be spread casually. Thank you. I definitely won't spread this matter outside. I definitely won't. Qin Yu repeatedly promised. Qin Yu naturally knew that the surnames of the 8 great families were not allowed to be spread casually. At this moment, for Huang Jing to tell him, Qin Yu felt grateful towards Huang Jing. The 8 great families of the Divine Realm were born when the Divine Realm was born. The surnames of the 8 great families are only known to the upper echelons of the Divine Realm. As for the surname Jiang that you mentioned, it is indeed one of the surnames of the 8 great families. When Huang Jing said this, she smiled slightly at Qin Yu. At this moment, Qin Yu's deep and serene eyes were as dazzling as the resplendent stars. As expected, as expected. Qin Yu felt as if his heart was hanging by a thread. His entire being was in a state of nervousness. Huang Jing continued, The surnames of the 8 great families of the Divine Realm are Huangfu, Tang, Mu, Jiang, Duanmu, Shintu, Putai, and Zhou. The utmost East Sage Emperor's family is the Huangfu family. A thought flashed through Qin Yu's mind. The eastern regions of the Divine Realm are the sphere of influence of the Huangfu family. Then, he threw this thought to the depths of his mind. Qin Yu continued to stare at Huang Jing. He was looking forward to finding out which family the Jiang family was. The 8 great lands of the Divine Realm are the northern continent's floating snow city, the southern continent's light lens city, the eastern continent's Mount Dazzling Gold, the western continent's Blazing Mountain, the northwestern Thunder Punishment City, the northeastern Forest Ocean City, the southeastern Underground City, and the southwestern Jade Wave Lake. Huang Jing finished speaking in a single breath. Then, she smiled at Qin Yu. Seeing that Huang Jing didn't say anything, Qin Yu couldn't help but say anxiously, Miss Huang Jing. Huang Jing smiled. I know you're anxious. This Jiang family is the utmost North Sage Emperor's family of the 8 great families of the Divine Realm. Almost all of the Jiang family's clansmen live in the floating snow city. Qin Yu, are you satisfied? Floating snow city. Floating snow city. In an instant, Qin Yu's mind was filled with the 3 words floating snow city. The blood in his body felt as if it was boiling. At this moment, Qin Yu seemed to have lost the ability to think. When Huang Jing saw that Qin Yu's skin had turned red and he was in a dazed state, she couldn't help but be surprised. Qin Yu's body trembled. Then, he sobered up. He immediately looked at Huang Jing and said anxiously, Miss Huang Jing, I would like to ask if you know a girl called Jiang Li. Jiang Li? You know little sister Jiang Li too? Huang Jing was surprised. Don't tell me that you're also chasing after little sister Zhang Li. Chapter 528. When Qin Yu heard Huang Jing's question, he suddenly woke up from his stupor. The relationship between him and Li Er couldn't be known to outsiders yet. His current strength was too weak. Qin Yu immediately asked, "Chasing after Zhang Li? Miss Huang Jing, why do you say that? Could it be that there are a lot of people chasing after Zhang Li?" "Oh." Huang Jing looked at Qin Yu suspiciously. Qin Yu felt a lingering fear in his heart. If he did not wake up from his stupor when Huang Jing questioned him, he might have really blurted it out. "Miss Huang Jing, what are you thinking about?" Qin Yu said with a faint smile. In a short moment, Qin Yu's emotions had completely calmed down. Huang Jing glanced at Qin Yu a few times and then said, "Of course there are a lot of people chasing after Sister Zhang Li. This involves a big secret. I will not tell you about it for now." "Involves a big secret? What secret is so mysterious?" Qin Yu smiled. Huang Jing shook her head and did not say anything. Actually, this secret was not a big secret. After all, almost all the upper echelons of the divine realm knew about it. Otherwise, there would not be so many heavenly deities chasing after Zhang Li. However, Huang Jing did not want to tell this secret to Qin Yu. "Actually, Sister Zhang Li is quite pitiful." Huang Jing sighed. Qin Yu's heart trembled. What happened to Li Er? How was she pitiful? However, Qin Yu pretended to be curious and asked, "Zhang Li is pitiful? How is she pitiful?" Huang Jing shook her head and sighed. "Zhang Li is a member of the Zhang family in the North Pole. Her status can be considered high. Logically speaking, she should be able to live a carefree life. After all, forced marriages are very rare nowadays. In the divine realm, there are also very few people who crazily like someone. However, ever since that shocking battle, Sister Zhang Li's situation has not been good. There are a lot of people chasing after her, and many of them have extremely high statuses. With so many people chasing after her, does this mean that she is charming? If that is the case, then it would be great. The most tragic thing is that among this large group of people chasing after Sister Zhang Li, not many of them actually like Sister Zhang Li." Huang Jing sighed. A group of people who did not like her, but chased after her. This was indeed sad. Qin Yu felt a burst of anger rising from the bottom of his heart, but he tried his best to maintain a calm expression on his face. "Miss Huang Jing, those people don't like Zhang Li. How can they pursue her? It's all for the chance to become a deity king." Humph, that group of people all wanted to become the new god king. Little sister Zhang Li is truly pitiful. If she were to marry any of them, then, fortunately there's still senior Zhang Lan to help little sister Zhang Li. Otherwise, little sister Zhang Li would have already been forced to marry someone else. Huang Jing sighed. Qin Yu's heart trembled. Marry and become someone's wife? These words made Qin Yu's heart tighten. Although he knew that this had not happened, just thinking about it made Qin Yu's heart tighten. Qin Yu didn't know what he would do if Li Er really became someone else's wife. Uncle Lan, Li Er. Qin Yu clenched his teeth tightly. At this moment, it was as if his determination had been engraved onto his soul. Li Er, persevere for a bit longer. When I possess sufficient strength, I will definitely openly step into the floating snow city. The current Qin Yu needed to endure hardships and train diligently. He would only display his splendor in the future after he had accomplished something. Miss Huang Jing, I, Qin Yu, am endlessly grateful for what you've told me today. Qin Yu bowed to express his thanks once again. Huang Jing immediately narrowed her eyes with a smile. It's nothing. When you arrive at Mount Dazzling Gold in the future, you will also know about these things. Huang Jing turned around and looked to the 9-headed black dragon Tan Jiao in the distance. This Tan Jiao said that he has something to discuss with you. You can discuss it with him now. Huang Jing said with a smile. At the same time, she retrieved her spatial domain. His short scarlet hair stood erect like steel needles. Under his scarlet sharp eyebrows were a pair of gloomy and baleful eyes. The nine-headed black dragon Tanjiu, with the appearance of a lean youth, was standing on an open space with a cold expression on his face. The mountain wind of the ravine whistled past and blew onto his body. However, Tanjiu's appearance did not change in the slightest. "This Qinyu, I hope that he will not fight to the death with me." Tanjiu had a matter that caused him to feel vexed. Qinyu's identity. From Tanjiu's point of view, Qinyu possessed a high-quality heavenly divine artifact and also knew the extraordinary ability, so close yet worlds apart. On top of that, Qinyu had also said that he had a master. Today he, Tanjiu, was planning to kill Qinyu. However, at the final moment, his plan was ruined by Huang Jing. However, Tanjiu also started to worry. If Qinyu were to inform the mysterious master behind Qinyu of this matter and have that master kill him, what should he do? His desire to kill Qinyu was something that Qinyu had definitely sensed in the Six Directions extermination formation. Tanjiu believed that Qinyu would definitely retaliate. Since Qinyu was going to retaliate, then he must destroy Qinyu from the very beginning. Kill Qinyu? The scene of Huang Jing easily breaking through his strongest offensive formation appeared in Tanjiu's mind. He gave up on that idea in his heart. With Huang Jing present, it was simply impossible for him to kill Qinyu. There's only a single method left. Tanjiu thought in his heart. Tanjiu, didn't you have something to discuss with Qinyu? Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice sounded from beside him. Tanjiu was slightly startled as he looked to the side. Huang Jing, who was still far away from him earlier, had actually arrived beside him. Tanjiu immediately bowed slightly. "Lady Huang Jing, the matter that I have to discuss with him is very short. Please wait a moment." After saying that, Tanjiu turned into a blur and arrived beside Qinyu in a short moment. "Tanjiu, go ahead and speak." Qinyu looked to the nine-headed black dragon Tanjiu with a light smile on his face. Qinyu was also very curious about this Tanjiu. A nine-headed black dragon was actually able to transform into a youngster after transforming into a human form. Spatial ripples spread out from the nine-headed black dragon Tanjiu's surroundings. The spatial ripples also covered an area of 100 meters. Spatial domain. Qinyu did not retreat at all. That was because he believed that Tanjiu before him had tasted his teleportation ability and would not do anything stupid. "Qinyu, I merely wanted to apologize to you." Tanjiu bowed and said with a smile on his face. "Apologize?" Qinyu looked to Tanjiu in confusion. Did this Tanjiu have some sort of problem with his head? Could it be that he wanted to apologize for killing him earlier? Was this something that could be solved with merely an apology? "Of my 3 subordinates, you've killed Xionghe, seriously injured the other 2, and even destroyed a low-quality heavenly divine artifact. As the leader of the Black Dragon Pool, I had no choice but to come out and take care of you. If I were to let you go, how would I be able to convince the others?" Tanjiu raised his scarlet eyebrows and continued. "If I were to not kill you, no one would be convinced by me. Later on, I used the Six Directions extermination formation to attack you. However, it was broken through by that Lady Huang Jing. The nearly 1,000,000 deities of my Black Dragon Pool would also understand that it is not that I do not wish to avenge my subordinates. Rather, I do not have the ability to avenge them. You cannot blame me for this." Tanjiu looked to Qinyu. "Qinyu, I presume you understand the meaning behind my words now." Qinyu sneered in his heart. "Aren't you trying to make me think that you, Tanjiu, were forced to kill me, Qinyu? Do you not have the desire to kill me?" "Tanjiu, I am able to understand your difficulties. As the leader of the Black Dragon Pool, there is nothing wrong with doing this," Qinyu said in a very considerate manner. "Qinyu, for you to be able to understand me like this, I also feel a lot more relaxed." Tanjiu chuckled. However, Tanjiu was still skeptical in his heart. He did not believe that Qinyu would let him off so easily. Qinyu continued. "Tanjiu, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first." "Qinyu, I am someone who is unable to keep my mouth shut. Earlier, after finding out that you possess the remarkable ability, so close, yet worlds apart, I was unable to restrain my mouth and told this matter to my trusted aide. Tan Jiu said in succession. I am truly sorry. However, Qin Yu, you can rest assured. This trusted aide of mine is much more tight-lipped than me. As long as I am here, he will definitely not spread this matter. Of course I believe in brother Tan Jiu, Qin Yu said with a light smile. However, Qin Yu was cursing angrily in his heart. Humph, wasn't this Tan Jiu threatening me that if I were to kill him, his trusted aide would spread the news of my so close, yet worlds apart, remarkable ability? Tan Jiu said to Qin Yu. Qin Yu, your so close, yet worlds apart, remarkable ability is truly extraordinary. If all the heavenly deities in the divine realm were to find out about it, who knows how many ambitious heavenly deities would risk their lives to have designs on you. There are a lot of heavenly deities in the divine realm who are willing to take risks. Qin Yu grew even more furious. Tan Jiu's intention was very clear. If he were to die and the news of so close, yet worlds apart, was to be leaked, it would attract a large number of ambitious heavenly deities from the divine realm to come and deal with him. Willing to take risks? However, since it's taking risks, one must be prepared to die. It is not that easy to kill me, Qin Yu said with a light smile. That's right, that's also what I think. Tan Jiu nodded. Suddenly, Ha, Black Dragon, I've heard that even your Black Dragon Palace has been burned down by someone. An insolent roar was heard. That roar resonated through the heaven and earth like the rumbling of thunder. A robust man with bulging muscles and a height even more frightening than Xiong Hei flew down from the sky above the ravine. Big brother, it's not only the Black Dragon Palace, even the other 3 palaces have been burned down. Another robust man with a curly beard also flew down from the sky above the ravine. I've heard that it was done by a heavenly deity who is proficient in setting up formations. I truly wish to experience that. Another robust man flew down from the ravine. These 3 robust men with rock-like muscles, a stature even larger than Xiong Hei and auras 10 times more tyrannical than Xiong Hei's, were practically the same in appearance. What a tyrannical aura! Qin Yu immediately turned his gaze toward these 3 men. These 3 robust men, I reckon they're 3 mid-level heavenly deities. There was a strange aspect about these 3 robust men. That was, all 3 of them had purple pupils. When the 9-headed black dragon Tan Jiu saw the 3 men flying over, he started to frown. At the same time, he immediately created 3 clones from his body. The 3 black dragons that were created all held a long stick in their hands. Chapter 529. When Qin Yu saw Tan Jiu's reaction, his brows started to frown. Were these 3 boars Tan Jiu's enemies? The 3 purple-eyed robust men landed on the ground in succession. The leading purple-eyed robust man looked to the original location of the Black Dragon Palace and the other palaces. He started to laugh loudly. It would appear that what we've heard is true. Those palaces have all been burned to nothingness. Aya, Black Dragon, you've truly lost a great deal of face this time around. There's a formation here. Could it be that it's the formation set up by that heavenly deity proficient in formations? A purple-eyed robust man standing at the very back walked toward the great formation array that Qin Yu had set up with a face filled with excitement. That great formation array was a killing array that Qin Yu had set up. It was capable of shooting out white pure flames. Third brother, be careful. The leading purple-eyed robust man shouted. I'm fine. After saying that third brother directly stepped into the killing formation. Once he stepped into the killing formation, the entire killing formation was activated. White pure flames immediately filled the entire killing formation. Aya. White pure flames. This formation is truly abnormal. Let's go, let's go. Even if we were to use our spatial domain to block the white pure flames, it would still be very tiring after a long time. While his voice was still sounding, that third brother had already rushed out from the killing formation. Blocking the white pure flames with spatial domain would also be tiring after a long time? Qin Yu cast a puzzled glance at the 9-headed black dragon Tan Jiu beside him. Not long ago, when this Tan Jiu was in the killing formation, Qin Yu had thought that his spatial domain would be able to easily block the white pure flames. However, it would appear that it was not that easy. Thinking about it, the white pure flames were very powerful. If one were to use one's spatial domain to block them, one would definitely have to exhaust a certain amount of soul power. Qin Yu, do you know these three? Tan Jiu looked to Qin Yu. Qin Yu shook his head. Tan Jiu looked to the 3 purple-eyed robust men walking over from afar. He said, "There are 3 relatively large bandit powers outside of Yuchi City. One is my Black Dragon Pool, the other is Mount Three Forks and Mount Cold Gold. These 3 boars are the 3 leaders of Mount Three Forks." Mount Three Forks? So it's them. Qin Yu understood. During his days in the Sealfield village, Qin Yu had learned about the legends of the 3 chiefs of Mount Sancha from the surrounding villagers. In the eyes of the villagers of the Sealfield village, the 3 chiefs of Mount Sancha were 3 valiant and barbaric heavenly deities. Among the 3 bandit forces, Cold Gold Mountain had the best reputation. Although Mount Cold Gold had the least amount of bandits, all of them were elites. They rarely robbed, but when they did, they would usually spend a lot of money. Haha, Black Dragon, I haven't seen you in so many years. I didn't even have the chance to spar with you. This time, us 3 brothers happened to pass by and learned that something big had happened here. I guessed that you would definitely appear this time. Haha, I was right. The 3rd brother of the 3 violet-eyed muscular men laughed loudly. Tan Jiu himself and his 3 clones, the 4 Tan Jius, were all coldly looking at the 3 of them. One of the Tan Jius frowned and said, "Barbarian bandit, don't you try to show off your cleverness here. You 3 brothers have come to my place for 2 reasons. Firstly, to humiliate me. Secondly, to fight me. If you want to fight, then fight. I am already prepared." 3 clones? The leading violet-eyed muscular man frowned and said, "Tan Jiu, your 3 clones are going to fight against us 3 brothers. Could it be that you're actually confident that you'll be able to stop us 3 brothers with only 3 clones?" Another man beside the violet-eyed muscular man said, "Big brother, don't waste time with him. Let's go and trample on his 3 clones first. At that time, this black dragon will naturally become anxious." At this moment, Huang Jing had also walked over to Qin Yu's side. "Qin Yu, go to the side. These 3 mid-level heavenly deities all possess pretty good strength. If they were to fight, they would likely affect the others," said Huang Jing to Qin Yu with a smile. What a beautiful little sister. Come, get intimate with your 3 great kings." The 3rd brother of the 3 leaders of Mount San Forks, Man Bandit, opened his eyes wide. He stared at Huang Jing and shouted strangely. The cold and indifferent Tan Jiu was also slightly startled. He then looked to Huang Jing. Qin Yu also looked to Huang Jing. Take liberties with a high-level heavenly deity? For a high-level heavenly deity to kill a mid-level heavenly deity was simply an easy task. Neither Qin Yu nor Tan Jiu knew what sort of reaction Huang Jing would have. Seeing the expressions of Qin Yu and Tan Jiu, the 3-man brothers also felt that the situation was bad. Immediately, the 3-man brothers tried to use their divine awareness to inspect Huang Jing and the others. When they inspected Qin Yu, the 3-man brothers were puzzled. That was because they discovered that Qin Yu possessed the divine energy of a high-level deity. Earlier, they had thought that Qin Yu was a heavenly deity. However, when they inspected Huang Jing, the 3-man brothers were scared stiff. They were simply unable to see through Huang Jing at all. There were simply no powerful female experts in Yuchi City. Thus, Man Bandit tried to take liberties with Huang Jing earlier. However, who would have expected that he would end up kicking an iron plate? 3rd brother, impudent. The eldest of the 3-man brothers, Man Cho, was the more tactful one among the 3 brothers. He immediately shouted coldly. The 2nd brother, Man Fan, slightly frowned and said no more. As for the 3rd brother, Man Bandit, he started to mutter. "Motherfucker, A random little girl that we encountered actually turned out to be an expert. Huang Jing's expression turned ugly. Who would dare to take liberties with her when they were in Mount Dazzling Gold? Never would she have expected that she would be taken liberties with by a boor here. Slap your own mouth 10 times. Huang Jing's expression turned cold. She coldly stared at Man Bandit and said coldly. Man Cho cupped his hands and said, "Young lady, my third brother is too impulsive. Young lady, please forgive him. Slapping your own mouth 10 times is a bit excessive. How about this? We 3 brothers will apologize to young lady and present gifts to express our apology. What do you think?" What heavenly deities wanted was face. If you were to slash him with a blade during a battle, he would not mind. However, if you were to have him slap his own mouth, the punishment would be extremely heavy. Huang Jing's gaze suddenly turned even colder. Her gaze was like an ice blade. She fiercely swept her gaze across the 3 brothers and shouted, "Slap your own mouths 100 times. Otherwise, today will be the day of your deaths." Tan Jiu was watching the show from the side. As for Qin Yu, he sighed in his heart. He never would have expected that Huang Jing, who had a pretty good temperament, would be this frightening when angered. Man Bandit looked to his eldest brother and second brother. He then looked to Huang Jing and snarled, "I am the one who took liberties with you. If you want to kill us, then go ahead. However, do not involve my eldest brother and second brother. Slap your own mouths 100 times or you 3 brothers will all die. Enough of your nonsense." Huang Jing's gaze turned cold. Immediately, everyone in the surroundings felt a burst of fear. Huang. Qin Yu was about to say something when Huang Jing coldly looked to Qin Yu. Qin Yu couldn't help but smile bitterly. He no longer said anything. Actually, Qin Yu had a very good impression of the 3 Man brothers. Especially when he saw the 3 of them, he recalled his good brother from the immortal, devil and demon realm, Purple-Eyed Ox Demon Emperor Man Gone. Furthermore, the 3 of them also had purple eyes and the surname Man. It might even be possible that they were Purple-Eyed Ox Demon Emperors. However, the current Huang Jing had already revealed the might of someone who had been in a high position for many years. "Third brother, don't." The second brother Man Fan stared at Man Bandit and said solemnly, "If worst comes to worst, us 3 brothers will fight against this woman. Although we are unable to discover her strength, she might only be a peak mid-level heavenly deity." Man Cho also looked to Man Bandit. His gaze had already expressed his intention. Man Bandit shook his head. "This woman is too abnormal. Merely by her aura, I dare say that she should be a high-level heavenly deity." Fuck. Man Bandit cursed angrily. Then, he began to ruthlessly slap his own mouth. Pa, 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 pa. The sound was sharp and clear. It was like the sound of leather being whipped. At the time when Man Bandit was ruthlessly slapping his own mouth, he even displayed a simple and honest smile to his 2 brothers. Merely, at this moment, his face had already split open from the slaps. Blood was seeping out from his face. This Man Bandit was simply not showing any mercy when slapping himself. The slaps were extremely heavy. 100. "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Man Bandit's voice was still as loud as a bell. However, Qin Yu noticed that Man Bandit's eyes were bloodshot on his face. Huang Jing coldly humphed. After that, Huang Jing calmed herself down and stood beside Qin Yu without saying anything. At this moment, Man Cho, Man Fan and Man Bandit felt a bit embarrassed. Man Cho instead chuckled to ease the atmosphere. He then said to Tan Jiu, "Black Dragon, us 3 brothers have come here today with the intention of sparring with you. However, since this young lady is here today, we should... Don't bother about me. If you all want to fight, then fight." Huang Jing berated. Being berated by Huang Jing like this, Man Chao's words were interrupted. Man Chao's expression became a bit ugly. The 3 brothers glanced at each other and then turned around to leave. "Man Cho, you 3 brothers are leaving just like this?" Tan Jiu ridiculed. Seeing his old neighbor being humiliated like this, Tan Jiu was extremely happy. Man Bandit opened his eyes wide and shouted at Tan Jiu. "Humph! Us three brothers are in a bad mood today. Originally, we wanted to vent our anger on you. However, as this young lady is here today, we will not disturb you. Tomorrow, we three brothers will come and find you tomorrow." As Man Bandit said those words, he opened his mouth with a sinister expression like a monster's. "Third brother, take care of your wounds," the second brother Man Fan said. Man Bandit slightly nodded. A layer of jade-green light appeared on his face and the wounds on his face disappeared. Tan Jiu sneered and said, "Vent your anger on me? What a boastful tone. Even if you three brothers were to join hands, you would at the very most only be able to make me send out 3 clones. Yet, you're still so arrogant." Tan Jiu was indeed qualified to be arrogant. After all, he was able to split himself into 9. Haha, this place is so lively. And here I thought that it would only be a battle between low-level heavenly deities. Never would I have expected that the Man family's 3 stupid oxen and that 9-headed bug that had been hiding the entire time would all appear. A clear and bright voice sounded. A golden-clothed figure appeared in the sky. Qin Yu raised his head to look. Upon seeing the person who had arrived, the first impression that Qin Yu had was handsome, dashing. The person who had arrived was wearing golden clothes and had the appearance of a youngster. His appearance was very sunny. Upon seeing this youngster, Qin Yu felt that this golden-clothed youngster and the 9-headed black dragon Tan Jiu were polar opposites. Tan Jiu had dark skin. As for this golden-clothed youngster, his skin was as white as an infant's. Tan Jiu's gaze was gloomy and filled with killing intent. This golden-clothed youngster was very sunny and cheerful. "Man family's 3 stupid oxen, I only went to find you all to spar. Why did you all always avoid me? Furthermore, you 9-headed bug, I was unable to find you every time I tried to find you. This time around, I have managed to capture you all. None of you will be able to escape. Today all of you will have to fight against me," the golden-clothed youngster said while laughing loudly. Qin Yu was surprised. Who was this golden-clothed youngster who had suddenly appeared? Judging from his tone, he seemed to be an extraordinary character. Lu Shui. Suddenly, a voice sounded from beside Qin Yu. It was Huang Jing who was standing beside Qin Yu. As for the golden-clothed youngster who had an excited smile on his face earlier, his gaze suddenly stopped. He looked at Qin Yu in confusion. No, to be exact, he was looking at Huang Jing who was standing beside Qin Yu. The golden-clothed youngster tilted his head and saw Huang Jing who was standing beside Qin Yu. "Ah, big sister." The golden-clothed youngster opened his eyes wide. "Big sister." Qin Yu was startled. The 9-headed black dragon Tan Jiu also looked at Huang Jing in astonishment. He then looked at the golden-clothed youngster with an expression of disbelief. As for the 3 Man brothers, they also opened their eyes wide. After a long while, Man Fei muttered, "Never would I have expected that woman to be that battle maniac's big sister. Little brother is so powerful, never would I have expected that big sister would be even more powerful." "Lu Shui, what did you promise me when I left your place? Why did you come out right after I turned around and left?" Huang Jing said in a low voice. The golden-clothed youngster held his head and looked to the surrounding people. He then looked to Qin Yu. His eyes shined. He immediately changed the topic and said, "Big sister, seeing that you're standing so close to this person, you know him? Big sister who usually looks down on men, why is she so close to a man?" Sure enough, Huang Jing no longer asked about the golden-clothed youngster coming out. She immediately explained. "His name is Qin Yu. I've met him a couple of times." "Lu Shui, you must not speak nonsense." "Definitely not. Definitely not. Hee, I listen to big sister the most," the golden-clothed youngster said. After that, the golden-clothed youngster walked to Qin Yu's side, cupped his hands and said, "Brother Qin Yu, I am one of the 3 great leaders of Yuchi City. Mount Cold Gold's leader, Huangfu Lu Shui. I presume you've heard of my great name. Brother Huangfu, I am Qin Yu. Your big sister has already introduced me. Qin Yu immediately saluted. Only at this moment did Qin Yu come to know that this golden-clothed youngster was actually the leader of one of the three great bandit powers of Yuchi City, Mount Cold Gold. However, no matter how he looked at it, he was unable to tell that such a bright youngster was a bandit leader. At the same time, Qin Yu was also puzzled. Huang Jing's surname was Huang. This Huangfu Liushui's surname was Huangfu. Were the two of them siblings? Huang Jing smiled apologetically to Qin Yu. Brother Qin Yu, I was originally planning to return from Mount Cold Gold. Now that you're fine, I shall take my leave first. I hope that we can meet again in Mount Dazzling Gold in the future. Miss Huang Jing, when my strength increases in the future, I will definitely go there. Qin Yu immediately said. This Huangfu Liushui's eyes immediately shined. He immediately smiled and said, Big sister, take care. Chapter 530. Huang Jing glanced at Huangfu Liushui in annoyance. In the end, she instructed, Liushui, if you're tired of playing, then don't stay in that desolate Mount Cold Gold. Go back to Mount Dazzling Gold. Yes. Huangfu Liushui nodded obediently. However, Huang Jing knew that her words were probably useless. Otherwise, her younger brother would not have run away from home. Given his younger brother's rebellious personality, this was the only way he could persuade him. If he were to use force, the result would be even worse. All right, I'll be leaving now. Qin Yu, farewell. Huang Jing looked at Qin Yu. Qin Yu also saluted, Miss Huang Jing, we will meet again at Mount Dazzling Gold. Huang Jing smiled when she heard Qin Yu's words. Then, she soared into the air and flew towards the east. Phew, we're finally gone. Huangfu Liushui laughed happily. No wonder Brother Huangfu possesses a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. So it turns out that you have an older sister with a high status in Mount Dazzling Gold. Tan Zhou coldly humphed and said. Tan Zhou's words contained jealousy. High-quality heavenly divine artifacts, even on Mount Dazzling Gold, it was likely that only high-level heavenly deities with extremely high statuses would be able to obtain them. As for Tan Zhou, he had also paid an enormous price in order to luckily obtain a mid-quality heavenly divine artifact. As for Man Chou, Man Fan and Man Fei, although they were all mid-level heavenly deities, the three brothers were only barely able to obtain a low-quality heavenly divine artifact each. As bandits, it was not easy for them to obtain heavenly divine artifacts. Those three low-quality heavenly divine artifacts had already caused Man Chou and his brothers to spend a lot of effort. In the divine realm, the majority of low-level heavenly deities do not possess heavenly divine artifacts. That was because heavenly divine artifacts were too precious. This was also the reason why Mei Ji and Taoist Lu Su were jealous of Xiong He. Xiong He's low-quality heavenly divine artifact, the spiked club, Mountain Crusher, was originally the weapon of the nine-headed black dragon, Tan Zhou. Tan Zhou only bestowed that low-quality heavenly divine artifact to Xiong He after obtaining it. Merely, that low-quality heavenly divine artifact was destroyed by Qin Yu. What? Are you jealous? Huangfu Liushui turned his hand and took out a huge axe. The giant axe was entirely golden in color. As soon as the giant axe was taken out, Qin Yu could feel the terrifying momentum contained within the giant axe. If the divine sword Scarlet Blood had a sharp aura, then the giant axe had an incomparably heavy aura. Huangfu Liushui caressed the enormous axe in his hand. It was as if he was caressing the skin of his lover. Tan Zhou, if you're jealous, then just say it. This high-quality heavenly divine artifact is something that I have spent a great deal of effort to obtain. With your status, unless you reach the high-level heavenly deity level and join a power, that power would be able to give you a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. Otherwise, with merely your current strength, you would only be able to obtain a high-quality heavenly divine artifact in your dreams. Tan Zhou coldly snorted and took a glance at Qin Yu beside him. Tan Zhou cursed in his heart. Huang Fu Lushui, if it wasn't for that older sister of yours, I fear that a high-quality heavenly divine artifact would have already been in my hands. Furthermore, I might even have learned the remarkable ability, so close, yet worlds apart. What's there to be jealous about? It's not like you're the only one here with a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. Tan Zhou raised his scarlet brows and said coldly. Who else has a high-quality heavenly divine artifact? Huang Fu Liushui's eyes shined. As for Man Chou, Man Fan and Man Fei, they all looked to Tan Zhou in amazement. Man Fei even said, "There's someone with a high-quality heavenly divine artifact? Black Dragon, you'd best not make a ruckus. A high-quality heavenly divine artifact is no ordinary toy." Qin Yu frowned. Sure enough, that Tan Zhou looked to Qin Yu, pointed to Qin Yu and said, "Brother Qin Yu possesses a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. That was bestowed to him by Brother Qin Yu's master. It is truly incomparably powerful." Qin Yu was furious in his heart. Tan Zhou turned to Qin Yu and said apologetically, "That's right, Qin Yu, I am a person who is unable to keep my mouth shut. Earlier, I saw that Huang Fu Lushui was extremely arrogant and felt that it was unfair for you. Thus, I was unable to refrain myself from speaking out." Felt that it was unfair for me? At this moment, Qin Yu truly didn't know whether or not he should curse this Tan Zhou for being extremely shameless. Huang Fu Liushui's eyes shined. He turned to Qin Yu and said, "Qin Yu, you also possess a high-quality heavenly divine artifact? I used my divine awareness to observe you. The divine energy aura you emitted is only that of a high-level deity. You possess a high-quality heavenly divine artifact, yet this nine-headed bug did not try to snatch it from you?" Huang Fu Lushui took a glance at Tan Zhou. "I know this nine-headed bug's temperament very well. He would definitely not be able to restrain himself. I have just reached the low-level heavenly deity level. I have yet to transform the divine energy within my body." Qin Yu immediately explained. This was the only explanation he could give. The souls of deities and heavenly deities were different from the souls of immortals and mortals. Upon reaching the perfection soul realm, a deity's soul would condense into the soul Jin Dan. As for heavenly deities, their souls would form the nascent soul. The souls of deities and heavenly deities were all material entities that were hidden deep within their minds. It was simply impossible to inspect them. As for the divine energy and heavenly divine energy within one's body, it was very easy to determine. Those with high levels of power could use their divine awareness to obstruct others from inspecting them. As for those with low levels of power, they could only allow others to inspect them. Oh, so that's the case. Huang Fu Lushui suddenly realized. Soon after, he said in confusion, "But you, a mere low-level heavenly deity, were able to block the nine-headed bug with merely a high-quality heavenly divine artifact? Although I am not fond of the nine-headed bug, to be honest, this nine-headed bug's battle prowess is extremely astonishing." Tan Zhou coldly humphed from the side. "It was your big sister who saved me." Qin Yu explained. Huang Fu Lushui immediately understood. He laughed out loud and said, "That's right. With my big sister helping out, if this nine-headed bug dared to attack you, it would be courting death." "Oh, that's right. Do you really possess a high-quality heavenly divine artifact?" "That's right," Qin Yu admitted. He extended his hand and the divine sword Scarlet Blood appeared in his hand. This sword is called Scarlet Blood. It is a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. It was bestowed to me by my master. In Qin Yu's heart, that craftsman god Che-Ho Yuan had indeed taught him like a master. Everything in the bewitching god temple was left to Qin Yu by Che-Ho Yuan. It would not be excessive to say that it was bestowed to him by his master. "Master, may I know your master's name?" Huang Fu Lushui promptly asked. "Perhaps I might know him. Master has ordered me to not mention his name." "I am truly sorry," Qin Yu said in a slightly apologetic manner. Actually, Che-Ho Yuan had also left a message for Qin Yu. He told Qin Yu, his successor, not to be discovered by others. Otherwise, merely his identity as the craftsman god's successor would cause many people to spy on him. Huang Fu Lu Shui nodded. He was also someone who had seen the world. He would not have any malicious intentions just because of a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. Nine-headed bug, and you 3 stupid oxen, my big sister has already left. There are no outsiders here either. Let's have a great battle here. Huang Fu Lu Shui held the enormous golden axe in his hand and waved it about non-stop. Man Chou, Man Fan and Man Fei glanced at each other. The second brother Man Fan nodded and humphed. That's fine too. Today, us 3 brothers had planned to fight against the Black Dragon. Merely, our mood was ruined by your big sister. Now that your big sister has left, we can have a great battle. That's right. Fuck, I have a belly full of anger that I have nowhere to vent. Man Fei promptly said. Vent your anger? Vent it on me? I also have a belly full of anger right now. Tan Jiu's expression grew even gloomier. Today he had not had a smooth day. He had just lost a low-level heavenly deity subordinate and was about to kill Qin Yu. Furthermore, he had to worry about Qin Yu's master coming for revenge. How could he not be sullen? The 3-man brothers stood to the side. The 3 brothers were each holding a trident. These tridents were low-quality heavenly divine artifacts. They were dark red in color and extremely heavy. Huang Fu Lu Shui held the enormous golden axe in his hand and stood to the side with a smile on his face. The 3-man brothers, Huang Fu Lu Shui and the other 3 were all looking at the 9-headed black dragon Tan Jiu. At this moment, Tan Jiu had already used all of his incarnations. 9 Tan Jius were standing there. Qin Yu was watching the battle from afar. The 3-man brothers, Huang Fu Lu Shui and Tan Jiu were all mid-level heavenly deities. However, although they were all mid-level heavenly deities, there was a gap between their strength. I'll go first. Huang Fu Lu Shui laughed loudly. At the same time, he tossed the enormous axe in his hand into the sky. That enormous golden axe suddenly grew in size. It was like a large mountain. As for Huang Fu Lu Shui himself, his body was emitting a misty golden light. His body streaked across a straight line and instantly rushed toward one of the Tan Jius. His metal-like fist was directly smashed toward that Tan Jiu's head. Immediately, Tan Jiu and Huang Fu Lu Shui began to fight with lightning speed. Afterimages appeared all over the place unceasingly. Boom! The enormous golden axe's blade was close to 10 miles in length. However, the blade of the axe was still extremely thin and sharp. 10 miles in length. How enormous was that? The enormous golden axe was chopped down. Its speed was extremely fast. In an instant, it ruthlessly chopped toward the other Tan Jiu. That Tan Jiu held the black stick in his hand and could only forcibly block it. Bang! Like an earthquake, Qin Yu felt that the ground was shaking. An enormous crack appeared on the ground. As for that Tan Jiu that was chopped by the axe, he was chopped into a deep ravine. After a while, an afterimage rushed out from the deep ravine. It was precisely that clone that was chopped into the ravine. At this moment, this clone had a pale complexion. He was seriously injured. You only know how to rely on your high-quality heavenly divine artifact. That clone Tan Jiu raised his scarlet eyebrows and shouted angrily. Huang Fu Lu Shui, even if you possess a high-quality heavenly divine artifact, you will still be trampled upon by me. Of the 9 great clones, 6 of them rushed toward Huang Fu Lu Shui at the same time. As for the remaining 3 clones, they began to fight the 3-man brothers one-on-one. Tan Jiu, the 3-man brothers and Huang Fu Lu Shui were all mid-level heavenly deities. The 3 of them were all capable of forming spatial domains. Thus, it was possible that they were familiar with each other. They knew that if they were to use spatial domains, it would only be a waste of their soul's energy. Thus, with great tacit understanding, none of them used their spatial domains. 6 against 1. Holding the enormous golden axe in his hand, Huang Fu Lu Shui's entire body turned golden. His fists, legs, knees, elbows. Any part of his body was capable of frantically attacking. The enormous golden axe in his hand was chopping down with lightning speed. What a valiant body! Qin Yu gasped in admiration. He had personally witnessed Huangfu Lu Shui shattering the high-quality divine armor worn by one of Tan Jiu's clones with a single punch. Qin Yu knew very well that when a mid-quality heavenly deity used a divine artifact, their defensive power would be astonishingly strong. However, Huangfu Lu Shui still managed to shatter it. 6 clones attacking one, yet this Huangfu Liu Shui's speed is actually able to keep up with them. This Huangfu Liu Shui's speed is truly astonishing. Furthermore, that enormous axe, those clones simply do not dare to block it. Qin Yu was able to clearly see that Huangfu Lu Shui was completely at an advantage against 6 clones. Qin Yu turned around to look at the other battlefield. 3 clones against the 3-man brothers. 1 clone against 1. It would appear that the 3-man brothers hold a slight advantage. That's true. Tan Jiu's clones possess mid-quality heavenly divine artifacts. Although it's only a part of a set of mid-quality heavenly divine artifacts, it's still very powerful. As for the 3-man brothers, they only possess low-quality heavenly divine artifacts. The 3-man brothers roared angrily and frantically attacked. The 3 Tan Jius were also trying their hardest to block them. This battle continued for an entire day. In the end, Tan Jiu seemed to be unable to continue on. After all, it was indeed very difficult for him to fight against 4 people by himself. Especially Huangfu Lu Shui. Tan Jiu knew that even if he were to fight Huangfu Lu Shui one-on-one, he would only be able to gain a slight advantage. And now, he had only sent out 6 clones. Thus, he could only be trampled upon. Roar! Tan Jiu suddenly roared angrily. 9 clones gathered toward the center with lightning speed. After that, the 9 Tan Jius gathered into a single person. At the same time, the 9 black sticks gathered into a 9-section whip. Tan Jiu was able to clearly sense the vigorous and powerful energy within his body. Huangfu Lu Shui and the 3 of you, come again if you have the ability. Holding the 9-section whip in his hand, Tan Jiu shouted angrily. Haha, you're finally going all out? Delightful, delightful. Huangfu Lu Shui charged over while laughing loudly. As for the 3-man brothers, they merely howled and charged over once again. 4 against 1. Qin Yu finally experienced the true strength of this Tan Jiu. After the 9 great clones fused into one, Tan Jiu's strength and speed both increased by a lot. Especially the 9-section whip in his hand. The 9-section whip could be both soft and hard. It could turn to attack and turn into a long stick to smash people. It could also be half soft and half hard. The 9-section whip could also be extended to bind people. Furthermore, the 9-section whip could also be broken apart and split into several sections to attack. Being held by the current Tan Jiu, Qin Yu felt dazzled. Huangfu Lu Shui and the 3-man brothers might not be able to coordinate very well. Even though they were fighting 4 against 1, they were only able to gain a slight advantage and were simply unable to defeat Tan Jiu. His energy is completely condensed into his weapon. His attack power is completely condensed. Each of his kicks and each of his punches possess extremely astonishing attack power. There are no gorgeous moves. However, their power is extremely great. The majority of Qin Yu's attention was focused on Huangfu Lu Shui. After fighting for 3 days and 3 nights, in the end, Huangfu Lu Shui and the others had no choice but to admit that even if they were to fight for several hundred more years, it would still be impossible for them to win. Thus, they could only give up. Ha! Delightful, delightful. With a smile on his face, Huangfu Lu Shui walked over to Qin Yu's side. Qin Yu, how about coming to my Mount Cold Gold to play? Qin Yu had his own plans. He immediately said, I still have things to do. I'll go when I have the time. That's fine too. Huangfu Lu Shui nodded his head. He then secretly said to Qin Yu via divine awareness voice transmission. Qin Yu, I must remind you that you should quickly go to Mount Dazzling Gold and work hard to chase after my sister. Perhaps you might become my brother-in-law. Truly, I feel that my sister treats you pretty well. You are very promising. Qin Yu was startled. Seeing Qin Yu's expression, Huang Fu Lushuai immediately started laughing loudly. While laughing loudly, Huang Fu Lushuai flew away. Chapter 531. Qin Yu could only shake his head and smile. Qin Yu was able to tell that at the very most, Huang Jing had a favorable impression of him. Furthermore, Qin Yu believed that Huang Jing ought to be related to the utmost East Sage Emperor's Huang Fu clan. Huang Jing and Huang Fu Lushuai are siblings. The utmost East Sage Emperor is also from the Huang Fu clan. Perhaps this Miss Huang Jing's real name ought to be Huang Fu Jing. Qin Yu thought in his heart. Suddenly, Qin Yu's gaze was attracted by the three-man brothers. The leader of the three-man brothers, Man Chou, was walking toward Qin Yu. As for Man Fan who stood behind him, he had an indifferent expression. As for Man Fei, he was muttering. It seemed like he didn't want to speak with Qin Yu. The eldest, Man Chou, walked over to Qin Yu and said with a smile, "Brother Qin Yu, I am Man Chou. Let me introduce myself. This is my second brother, Man Fan. This is my third brother, Man Fei. This is our first time meeting. In the future, if you have the opportunity, please come to our Mount San Cha to stroll around. We will definitely receive you warmly." From Man Chou's point of view, although this Qin Yu had just become a low-level heavenly deity, his attainments in formation arrays were exceptional. Furthermore, he possessed a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. Furthermore, he was related to Huang Jing. Thus, his background was definitely not ordinary. This sort of person must be properly befriended. Man Fan slightly nodded to Qin Yu. He saluted and said, "Man Fan pays his respects to brother Qin Yu." As for Man Fei, he cupped his hands unwillingly. "My third brother is vulgar. Brother Qin Yu, please don't mind him too much," said Man Chou with a smile. Qin Yu felt strange. These three brothers' appearances were practically the same. However, their temperaments were completely different. Man Chou was a bit tactful. Man Fan was a bit cold. As for Man Fei, his temperament was like his appearance. "Brother Man Chou, when I see the three of you, I recall a good friend of mine from the lower realms. I would like to ask, are the three of you from the immortal, devil and demon realm?" With a smile on his face, Qin Yu inquired. A trace of surprise flashed through Man Chou's eyes. The indifferent Man Fan also looked at Qin Yu. As for that barbarian bandit, his reaction was the most intense. His eyes immediately opened wide. He stared at Qin Yu and said, "Ah, Qin Yu, you're also from the immortal, devil and demon realm? Ha, then when you were in the immortal, devil and demon realm, have you heard of us, the three great ox demon emperors?" "Oh, that's right. When did you ascend?" "When you ascended, who was the ox demon emperor?" "Man Tian, Man Yu?" "When we ascended, there were only two super divine beasts in the ox clan." Barbarian Bandit said so much in one breath. Only after seeing Qin Yu's astonished expression did Barbarian Bandit stop. He embarrassedly smiled and said, "To see brothers from the immortal, devil and demon realm, haha, I was a bit too excited." Qin Yu was completely certain in his heart. These three-man brothers were indeed from the immortal, devil and demon realm. Moreover, their true forms should be purple-eyed ox demon kings. Qin Yu had never heard of Man Tian and Man Yu. Qin Yu knew that these three-man brothers had ascended for who knows how long. Several billion years or even over 10 billion years was possible. As for the people from that era, he had never heard of them. "Brother Man Fei, I ascended not long ago. The difference between you and me is very large. Therefore, I have never heard of Man Tian and Man Yu." Qin Yu explained. "Oh, that's normal. Your realm is lower than ours. It's also possible that you ascended after us by several billion years." At this moment, Barbarian Bandit's face was filled with smiles. He appeared to be a lot more cordial. Man Chou had a face full of smiles. So Brother Qin Yu is also a brother from the immortal, devil and demon realm. That's truly great. How about, Brother Qin Yu join our Mount Sancha? Your status will be the same as us 3 brothers. This man Cho actually went along with the flow and even started to invite people. No, I still have things to do. Moreover, I'm used to being alone. Qin Yu refused. After that, Man Fei and Qin Yu talked for a long time. Finally, the 3 brothers left. This Man Fei is rather straightforward. The second brother Man Fan is steady and cold. As for the eldest brother Man Cho, Qin Yu suddenly felt that he could not see through the eldest brother Man Cho. In the vast sky, the 3 Man brothers were flying in the sky. Big brother, I was planning to have a good drink with Brother Qin Yu. Why did you send me a divine awareness voice transmission to urge me to leave earlier? Man Fei seemed to be a bit angry and said in dissatisfaction. Man Cho smiled and said, Third brother, don't trust others so easily. It's still hard to say whether or not that Qin Yu is from the immortal, devil and demon realm. What do you mean? Man Fei opened his eyes wide. Man Cho continued. In the divine realm, us 3 brothers are from the immortal, devil and demon realm. Although not many people know about it, it can't be considered a secret. If this Qin Yu is someone with intentions, he would still be able to find out. Perhaps he purposely said that to us. Originally, I suspected that he had some intentions. That's why I immediately invited him to our Mount Sancha to see how he would react. However, this Qin Yu refused my invitation. In that case, he might not have any bad intentions. Man Cho said with a light smile. Then it's settled. Man Fei immediately said. However, one must always be on guard against others. This Qin Yu appeared out of nowhere. We must wait for a period of time and carefully observe his behavior. Only then will we be able to determine his character. Man Cho said with a light smile. Third brother, what big brother said is reasonable. Man Fan, who had been silent the entire time, spoke. Man Fei snorted a couple times and mumbled for a long time. However, the 3 of them were blood brothers. Their relationship was incomparably deep. Thus, they naturally wouldn't have any ill feelings. Under the attentive gazes of many people from the Black Dragon Pool, Qin Yu was flying in the sky. He flew away from the Black Dragon Pool. Facing the gentle mountain breeze, he flew through the mountain forest. Qin Yu turned around and took a glance at the location of the Black Dragon Pool. That 9-headed black dragon Tanjiu has been hiding in the Black Dragon Pool for all these years. According to what Huang Jing said to this Tanjiu, it seems that he has come for a certain treasure. Qin Yu's heart was already filled with killing intent toward Tanjiu. The remarkable ability, teleportation, was truly too frightening. Qin Yu did not wish for others to know about it at all. However, it was not that easy to kill Tanjiu. Firstly, Tanjiu was a mid-level heavenly deity. Secondly, this Tanjiu possessed 9 clones. As long as a single one of his clones managed to escape, it would be a failure on the verge of success. Let's enter the bottom of the Black Dragon Pool first and properly investigate what sort of treasure is at the bottom of the pool. Then, let's see if there's an opportunity to kill this Tanjiu. Qin Yu had already made the decision in his heart. The dark curtain of night, originating from the utmost northern region's floating snow city, covered the entire divine realm. The entire divine realm was covered in darkness. The night of darkness was as cold as water. Within the ice-cold mountain breeze, within the tranquil valley of the Black Dragon Pool, a figure flashed like a phantom and arrived at the edge of the Black Dragon Pool. It was Qin Yu, who wore a black gown. When using teleportation, the guards of the Black Dragon Pool's valley can simply be ignored. Qin Yu had a slight smile on his face. His gaze turned to the Black Dragon Pool before him. The Black Dragon Pool had a circumference of 100 miles. One couldn't see the end of the Black Dragon Pool with a single glance. All one could see was boundless water. Strangely, the surface of the Black Dragon Pool had remained tranquil the entire time. Generally, large lakes would have waves even if there was no wind. However, even if there was wind in the Black Dragon Pool, there would not be any waves. It was indeed very strange. That Tan Jiao is likely to be extremely vigilant. Once someone enters the Black Dragon Pool, they might be discovered by Tan Jiao. Qin Yu was extremely careful. He immediately spread out the spatial energy from his universal world. In the divine realm, the spatial energy from the universal world was obstructed by the space of the divine realm. Thus, the spatial energy was only able to cover an area of 100 meters. If it were to extend to one side, it would only cover an area of 200 meters. The spatial energy permeated into the bottom of the pool. The area covered by the spatial energy was Qin Yu's spatial domain. Although in terms of might, it was likely to be inferior to a mid-level heavenly deity's spatial domain, it was at least half as powerful. Furthermore, controlling the water flow at the bottom of the pool to not fluctuate was an extremely easy task. Qin Yu lightly smiled. Then, like a fish, he dove into the Black Dragon Pool. Strangely, although he dove into the Black Dragon Pool, by relying on his spatial domain, the water of the Black Dragon Pool did not fluctuate in the slightest. The bottom of the Black Dragon Pool was pitch black like ink. However, anyone from the divine realm would be able to easily see through the darkness. At the bottom of the Black Dragon Pool, Qin Yu continued to extend his spatial energy. He was unceasingly inspecting the Black Dragon Pool. The Black Dragon Pool was truly enormous. Merely its depth was already 1,000 meters. As for its circumference, it was also 100 miles. Qin Yu was carefully inspecting the bottom of the pool. This Black Dragon Pool is truly strange. It's such an enormous lake. However, there's actually not a single living thing in it. There are only some underwater plants. Qin Yu sighed in his heart. Such a strange scene caused Qin Yu to be even more certain that there ought to be some sort of treasure in this place. Qin Yu was a very persistent person. He continued to use his spatial energy to inspect every inch of the Black Dragon Pool. The circumference of 100 miles was truly too large. Qin Yu was only able to inspect a circumference of 100 meters. Using this sort of method, Qin Yu inspected for 3 entire days. However, he had only managed to inspect a very small portion of the Black Dragon Pool. Merely to travel from one side of the Black Dragon Pool to the other, even with the fastest speed, would require 2 hours of effort. In fact, it would require several hundred trips in order to completely inspect the Black Dragon Pool. After a month, Qin Yu had arrived at the other corner of the Black Dragon Pool. Strange, I've completely inspected this Black Dragon Pool. Yet, why am I unable to find it? Qin Yu was puzzled. In the past month, Qin Yu had not dared to use his divine awareness to inspect the Black Dragon Pool. Firstly, it was because there was a great limit to the range of one's divine awareness underwater. Secondly, he was worried that he would be discovered by Tan Jiao. However, the universal world's spatial energy was different. Generally, when mid-level heavenly deities controlled the divine realm's spatial energy, they would cause quite a large commotion and attract the attention of others. The reason why they would cause a large commotion was because their ability to control the divine realm's spatial energy was too weak. If it was a god king controlling the spatial domain, others would not be able to sense it. The same principle. The universal world was created by Qin Yu. The spatial energy that Qin Yu controlled from the universal world was definitely not inferior to the spatial energy that god kings controlled from the divine realm. Even if the universal world's spatial energy covered Tan Jiao would not feel any discomfort. Thus, he would naturally not be able to discover Qin Yu. This was also the reason why Qin Yu dared to spend an entire month to inspect the entire Black Dragon Pool with great fanfare. Amen? I've searched the entire Black Dragon Pool but was unable to find Tan Jiao. It would appear that I can only wait. Qin Yu was frowning. He was standing in the middle of the pool. However, his body was not wet in the slightest. From the conversation between Miss Huang Jing and Tan Jiao, that Lu Yushi also knows that the treasure is here. I presume that Lu Yushi will also come here in the future. Qin Yu nodded in his heart. He immediately made his decision. Qin Yu disappeared from the bottom of the Black Dragon Pool. Inside the universal world. Qin Yu was standing on top of a tall mountain in the universal world. The universal world's spatial energy has been extending outside the Black Dragon Pool the entire time. If there is any movement in the Black Dragon Pool's water, I will naturally know about it. Qin Yu was certain that once that Lu Yushi entered the Black Dragon Pool, he would likely not be too careful. That was because both Lu Yushi and Tanjio knew of each other's existence. Even if Qin Yu was as careful as Lu Yushi, when Lu Yushi entered Tanjio's storage place, he would definitely cause some movement. I can only wait for him to come. Qin Yu sat cross-legged on the flat ground on the mountain top. This was also the only method that could be used. Suddenly, Uncle Fu appeared behind Qin Yu. The restriction of the universal world was too small. Like the mortal realm, Uncle Fu's speed was simply extremely fast here. When Qin Yu entered the Black Dragon Pool, he had already had Uncle Fu enter his universal world. Even the Zhonglan's realm was placed in his universal world by Qin Yu. Return to the Zhonglan's realm, Qin Yu said to Uncle Fu. Qin Yu and Uncle Fu directly disappeared from the mountain top. Merely, a little green pagoda appeared on the mountain top. It was the true body of the Zhonglan's realm. However, for it to be placed in the universal world, Qin Yu was extremely reassured. The universal world was created by Qin Yu. Even though Qin Yu was in the Zhonglan's realm, he was still able to sense the universal world's spatial energy that had spread out from the divine realm's Black Dragon Pool. In the second layer space of the Zhonglan's realm, Qin Yu began to train in peace. The time in the second layer space of the Zhonglan's realm was 100 times that of the outside world. What Qin Yu lacked the most right now was time. Divine Realm, Black Dragon Pool. It had been close to 1,000 years since the last great battle. Currently, 3 new palaces had been built in the Black Dragon Pool. The Black Dragon Palace in the center was even more solemn than before. Night. A blur streaked across the sky. A man appeared beside the Black Dragon Pool. Short silver hair, silver eyebrows. His height was only 170 centimeters. He looked like a youngster. This man was precisely the head commander of the entire Yuchi city's army. His status was second only to the Yuchi city's city master, Lu Yushi. Lu Yushi and Tanjio had nearly the same build. Even their attire was nearly the same. Tanjio had black skin whereas Lu Yushi had white skin. Other than their skin color and hair color, other than their eyes, the two of them were practically identical in all other aspects. Counting the days, it's about time. At the very most, there's still a couple more years. Lu Yushi looked to the Black Dragon Pool and lightly smiled. That idiot Tanjio, what use is there in hiding down there the entire time? That 7-colored magnificent lotus cannot be plucked until it's time to pluck it. Lu Yushi had never understood why Tanjio would wait in the secret area at the bottom of the pool. With a leap, Lu Yushi directly dove into the Black Dragon Pool. Lu Yushi was not as cautious as Qin Yu. That was because Lu Yushi wanted to be discovered by Tanjio so that Tanjio would open the passage to the secret area at the bottom of the pool. Inside the universal world, Qin Yu suddenly appeared. He raised his head and looked to the sky. With a slight smile on his face, he said, "After training for close to 100,000 years, this day has finally arrived. I shall see exactly what the Black Dragon Pool contains." Qin Yu disappeared from the universal world. When he reappeared, he had already arrived at the Black Dragon Pool. Qin Yu's body was surrounded by the universal world's spatial energy in an area of over 100 meters. Qin Yu's body was flickering unceasingly. Every time he flickered, he would travel over 100 meters. In a blink of an eye, he had already traveled over 10 miles. Unlike last time when Qin Yu had to carefully inspect the bottom of the pool, this time around, Qin Yu's speed was extremely fast. Chapter 532. After using teleportation to travel a distance, Qin Yu suddenly stopped. At this moment, the distance between Qin Yu and Lu Yushi could not be considered to be too far. Qin Yu did not dare to approach. Else, Lu Yushi might discover Qin Yu. Using his spatial power, Chu Feng carefully sensed the ripples of the pond water and determined Lu Yushi's location. After determining Lu Yushi's location time and time again, Qin Yu naturally saw the trajectory of Lu Yushi's movements in his mind. Directly rushing toward the center of the pond? Qin Yu was slightly puzzled. Could it be that Tan Jiu, who has been hiding in the Black Dragon Pool the entire time, is also at the center of the pond? Qin Yu stopped thinking about it and began to fly toward the center of the pond. After flying for a while at the bottom of the pond, Qin Yu sensed another ripple of water. That ripple originated from the center of the Black Dragon Pool. Furthermore, that ripple of water was extremely regular. Of the two ripples of water, one originated from Lu Yushi. As for the other ripple of water, it was naturally Tan Jiu's. Back then, I searched the entire Black Dragon Pool but was unable to find him. I truly do not know where he is hiding. Qin Yu quietly approached Tan Jiu. The plants at the bottom of the pond were lush. Qin Yu shuttled back and forth between some rocks and plants. After a short moment, Qin Yu arrived behind a rock. Spreading out his spatial power, Qin Yu was able to clearly see the center of the pond 100 meters away from him. At this moment, a tunnel had appeared at the center of the pond. The tunnel led deep underground. In another direction, Lu Yushi had also arrived at the center of the pond. Tan Jiu walked out from the tunnel. When he saw Lu Yushi, he said coldly, "Sure enough, you've come. Merely, you've come 2 years earlier than I had expected." Although the 7-colored magnificent lotus still needs a few more years to fully mature, I was worried that there might be an error in my calculations. Thus, I came a bit earlier. Lu Yushi had a smile on his face the entire time. The scarlet-haired and scarlet-browed Tan Jiu coldly snorted and said, "If you want to come in, quickly come in." After saying that, Tan Jiu entered the underground tunnel again. The silver-haired and silver-browed Lu Yushi also lightly smiled. He also stepped into the underground passageway. Right after the two of them stepped into the underground passageway, Qin Yu started to quietly follow them. His spatial energy also followed the underground passageway downwards. This underground passageway was several tens of meters deep, and about 80 meters below the bottom of the lake, there was an underground mansion. At this moment, Lu Yushi had also arrived below the mansion. As for Tan Jiu, he pressed a certain mechanism in the mansion. Immediately, the passageway began to slowly close. It was not the door of the passageway that closed. Rather, it was the entire passageway that closed. No wonder I couldn't find it the last time I searched. Qin Yu sighed inwardly. Qin Yu used the power of space to search, covering an area of 100 meters, at most 1 or 2 meters underground. There was no extra space power to penetrate more than 80 to 90 meters underground. Even if Qin Yu spent a few years searching, it would not be enough. 80 meters. That's enough for me to teleport over, Qin Yu thought. In front of the universal world's spatial energy, the solid rocks underground were simply unable to obstruct it. Perhaps even if a high-level heavenly deity were to come, they would not be able to go down. However, Qin Yu was able to. There's actually no water in this underground mansion. It's quite large. I'll go with that room. Qin Yu selected a room in the underground mansion. He directly teleported and disappeared into the bottom of the lake. 80 meters below the bottom of the lake. Inside the underground mansion. Qin Yu was inside one of the rooms. This side room was very close to the central courtyard. It was only several tens of meters away. Being in this room, Qin Yu was able to clearly hear the conversation between Tan Jiu and Lu Yushi. Because Lu Yushi and Tan Jiu were in the underground mansion, they felt that even high-level heavenly deities would not be able to sneak in. Thus, they did not have to worry about their conversation. Qin Yu's spatial energy spread out and covered over half of the courtyard. Lu Yushi and Tan Jiu were also within the range of his spatial energy. However, neither Lu Yushi nor Tan Jiu detected his spatial energy at all. Lu Yushi, the 7-colored magnificent lotus, is something that we discovered together back then. Let's split it according to the method we decided on back then. 2 7-colored magnificent lotuses, one for you and one for me. Tan Jiu said coldly. Hearing this, Qin Yu was slightly startled. 7-colored magnificent lotus? Qin Yu immediately recalled the records regarding the 7-colored magnificent lotus that he had seen in the Bewitching God Temple's precious medicine concocting books. The 7 lotus leaves of the 7-colored magnificent lotus can all be used to concoct pills. As for the core of the 7-colored magnificent lotus, merely consuming it would be able to bring a person with only a true spirit back to life. If used to concoct pills, its effects would be even greater. Qin Yu was shocked in his heart. That was because in the divine realm, a medicinal pellet capable of bringing a person with only a true spirit back to life was extremely valuable. In terms of value, it surpassed mid-quality heavenly divine artifacts and approached high-quality heavenly divine artifacts. As for the core of the 7-colored magnificent lotus, it was even more precious. That was because merely consuming it would only allow one to absorb a portion of its medicinal properties. If used to concoct pills, the effects would be much better. The value of this lotus core was most definitely comparable to that of a high-quality heavenly divine artifact or even higher. No wonder Tan Jiu and Lu Yushi would value it so highly. Qin Yu gasped in his heart. Although the 7-colored magnificent lotus was precious, to Qin Yu, it would at the very most only attract Qin Yu's attention. It was simply unable to excite Qin Yu. After all, Qin Yu possessed the Bewitching God Temple. There were a lot of treasures in the Bewitching God Temple. In the room where all kinds of medicinal ingredients were stored, although there were very few medicinal ingredients on the level of the 7-colored magnificent lotus, there were still several of them. So it's only for the 7-colored magnificent lotus. However, they said that there were actually 2 7-colored magnificent lotuses. This matter is truly strange. Qin Yu started to frown. He remembered very clearly that the scroll recorded that the 7-colored magnificent lotus was a treasure that was born by absorbing the divine spiritual energy of the world. Every single 7-colored magnificent lotus would absorb the surrounding divine spiritual energy. How could one 7-colored magnificent lotus coexist with another 7-colored magnificent lotus? It was like a tiger in a mountain. There would only be a single tiger in every region. This 7-colored magnificent lotus was the same. For 2 7-colored magnificent lotuses to grow together, in Qin Yu's logic, this was something that was simply impossible. 2 7-colored magnificent lotuses, one for you and one for me? Lu Yushi looked to Tan Jiu in confusion. Tan Jiu, when did you become this generous? With your temperament, don't you want to covet even more? Lu Yushi knew Tan Jiu very well. Tan Jiu was an extremely greedy person. When he was in the devil murder realm, he would always try his best to seize as many treasures as possible. Although the 2 of them had agreed to split the treasures equally, Tan Jiu had stayed here for countless years. Thus, Lu Yushi felt that Tan Jiu would definitely seize more. I want to covet even more. Are you willing to give it to me? Tan Jiu snorted coldly. I'm not. Lu Yushi replied. Then it's settled. Tan Jiu still had a cold and detached expression. I also know your strength very well. If the 2 of us were to fight, both of us would suffer. As for these 7-colored magnificent lotuses, it's just right for each of us to have one. Lu Yushi nodded with a smile on his face. Merely, the gaze with which he looked to Tan Jiu was as if he was looking at a new acquaintance. You've changed quite a lot, Lu Yushi said with a light smile. Tan Jiu snorted coldly. According to my estimations, the time it would take for the 7-colored magnificent lotuses to mature should be 3.5 years. At that time, you will take 1 7-colored magnificent lotus and I will take 1. As you say. The smile on Lu Yushi's face was extremely brilliant the entire time. After Lu Yushi finished saying those words, he got up and rushed toward a corner of the courtyard. A portion of Qin Yu's spatial power immediately changed directions and headed toward another corner. Upon seeing this, Qin Yu discovered something strange. Wherever the spatial power went, it was as if Qin Yu had personally arrived. After all, Qin Yu was the creator of the universal world. Amen. What a cold aura. The surface of the pond is actually this cold. That pond's water seems to be unitary heavy water. A small pond of unitary heavy water. It's about the same as the golden bead I obtained from the Dark Star Realm's trial Dark Star. Qin Yu immediately focused his attention. Unitary heavy water was extremely rare. For it to be able to form such a small pond, there was most definitely a treasure in the pond. The seven-colored magnificent lotus is cold by nature. The seven-colored magnificent lotus grows on top of unitary heavy water. The amount of unitary heavy water is relatively small. It is only enough to store about half a barrel of ordinary wooden barrels. Qin Yu still remembered the large amount of records regarding the seven-colored magnificent lotus in the Golden Scroll. Ordinary wooden barrels were only half the height of a person. How much could half a barrel contain? As for this pond, its shape was close to circular. Its diameter was close to 2 meters. For such a large pond, the amount of unitary heavy water in it was likely enough to store 10 barrels of unitary heavy water. 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses just so happened to be growing at the two ends of the unitary heavy water. The appearance of the seven-colored magnificent lotuses was exactly the same as what was recorded in the Golden Scroll. The lotus leaves were of 7 different colors. The lotus seed head was extremely small. There was a lotus heart on it. Qin Yu was suddenly surprised. There is a small hidden illusory formation set up in the center of the pond. Qin Yu used his spatial power to investigate and discovered what exactly was in the center of the pond. It was hidden by a hidden illusory formation. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, more than 3 years had passed. During these 3 years, Lu Yushi and Tan Jiu both sat cross-legged without saying a word. Qin Yu himself also sat cross-legged in the room without saying a word. Qin Yu, who was meditating, suddenly sensed a dazzling light. He immediately opened his eyes. He saw that the entire underground was covered by the dazzling seven-colored magnificent light. Qin Yu's spatial power immediately covered the unitary heavy water pond. At this moment, the 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses at the two ends of the pond were like 2 suns. They were emitting dazzling seven-colored magnificent light. Lu Yushi and Tan Jiu both rolled to the side of the pond. Haha, it has finally fully matured. Lu Yushi's eyes were filled with joy. Only when the seven-colored magnificent lotuses emitted a seven-colored magnificent light would it signify that they had fully matured. Tan Jiu also displayed a smile on his face. He immediately said, Lu Yushi, you go ahead and pick that one. I will pick this one. Compared to Lu Yushi, Tan Jiu was much calmer. Lu Yushi was actually on guard against Tan Jiu the entire time. He was worried that Tan Jiu would suddenly launch a sneak attack to completely seize the 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses. Very well, I will pick this one. As Lu Yushi said those words, he planned to pick it. However, at this moment, the 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses suddenly started to shine brightly. 2 dazzling rays of light flew out from the 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses. Then, they gathered toward the center of the pond. As for the 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses, they started to wither at a speed visible to the naked eye. The 2 dazzling seven-colored magnificent lights gathered in the center of the pond. The hidden illusory formation was naturally broken through. Tan Jiu's expression took a huge change. He muttered in disbelief, How is it? Aren't they still not fully matured? What is that? Lu Yushi's gaze immediately locked onto the center of the pond. The hidden illusory formation had already been removed. The thing inside the formation had already appeared. It was a magnificent lotus that was a size smaller than the 7-colored magnificent lotuses. Merely, it possessed 9 lotus leaves. Its entire body was emitting a faint black light. Qin Yu's eyes suddenly opened wide. 9-petaled magnificent lotus? That thing truly exists? At this moment, Tan Jiu's eyes regained clarity. As he looked to the 9-petaled magnificent lotus in the center of the pond, a trace of ruthlessness and madness flashed through his eyes. Chapter 533. The 9-petaled magnificent lotus had 9 lotus leaves. The seven-colored magnificent lotus was also known as the seven-petaled magnificent lotus. Although the seven-colored magnificent lotus was larger than the nine-petaled magnificent lotus, the seven-colored magnificent lotus only had a lotus core. On the other hand, although the nine-petaled magnificent lotus was smaller, there were 3 evenly distributed sparkling and translucent lotus seeds on the lotus head. The 3 translucent lotus seeds were milky white and emitted a faint white light. The core of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus, which was also the center of the 3 lotus seeds, was a black lotus core that was as translucent as ice. This black lotus core emitted a black light and at the same time, emitted a cold aura. No wonder there are 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses. It turns out that the aura emitted by the nine-petaled magnificent lotus gave birth to 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses. This nine-petaled magnificent lotus is quite domineering. It directly absorbed the essence of the 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses and allowed them to fully mature. Qin Yu finally understood the reason why the 2 rainbow magnificent lotuses grew together. At the same time, Qin Yu recalled the description of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus in the Golden Scroll. The nine-petaled magnificent lotus is of a higher level than the seven-colored magnificent lotus. It is a legendary treasure. In the history of the divine world, a nine-petaled magnificent lotus had been discovered. The most precious part of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus was its lotus heart. The lotus heart was nurtured by absorbing grand mist spiritual energy, and after refining it, one could turn into a magnificent lotus avatar. The 3 lotus seeds were milky white in color. Consuming just one of them would bring one back to life. If it was refined, the effects would be even better. The 9 lotus leaves were all extremely precious medicinal ingredients. Its rhizome is also a treasure, and its value is no less than a lotus seed. Although the nine-petaled magnificent lotus was a magnificent lotus, it could be considered a grand mist spiritual treasure. Once the lotus heart is refined, it can become a magnificent lotus avatar. Qin Yu's heart surged with traces of excitement. In the golden scroll left behind by the bewitching god temple, there was a detailed record of every part of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus, as well as the refining method and benefits of the magnificent lotus clone. The more he understood, the more excited Qin Yu became. The nine-petaled magnificent lotus was so precious that it even surpassed ordinary second-rate grand mist spiritual treasures. Even Qin Yu, who possessed the bewitching god temple, was looking forward to obtaining the nine-petaled magnificent lotus. Qin Yu didn't really care about the 3 lotus seeds, 9 lotus leaves, and roots. What he cared about the most was the black lotus core. Even in the divine realm, only a few of the upper echelons of the divine realm know about the nine-petaled magnificent lotus. I reckon that Tan Jiu and Lu Yuxi still don't know about the true preciousness of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus. Qin Yu shifted his attention to Lu Yuxi and Tan Jiu. Qin Yu's guess was correct. In the entire history of the divine realm, only a single nine-petaled magnificent lotus had appeared. As such, how could it possibly be something that 2 mid-level heavenly deities from a city like Yuchi City would know about? Even many of the high-level heavenly deities did not know about it. When Lu Yuxi saw the sudden appearance of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus, he was shocked. It actually absorbed the essence of 2 seven-colored magnificent lotuses. It's definitely more valuable than the 7-colored magnificent lotus. 9 leaves? Could it be? Could it be the legendary 9-petaled magnificent lotus? Back then, when Lu Yuxi and Tan Jiu discovered this place together, they had also discovered the 2 7-colored magnificent lotuses that were still growing. At that time, Lu Yuxi and Tan Jiu simply didn't know about the great name of the 7-colored magnificent lotus. Merely by seeing the unitary heavy water, they were certain that the 7-colored magnificent lotus was a treasure. Thus, Lu Yuxi returned and began to investigate through his connections in Yuchi City. In the end, he managed to find a piece of information. That information carefully described the precious location of the 7-colored magnificent lotus. This caused Lu Yuxi to be overjoyed. As for that information, it briefly mentioned the 9-petaled magnificent lotus. It said that above the 7-colored magnificent lotus was the legendary 9-petaled magnificent lotus. As for the uses of the various parts of the 9-petaled magnificent lotus, it was not mentioned. Neither Tanjio nor Lu Yushi knew about the uses of the various parts of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus. However, there was one thing that was absolutely certain. The nine-petaled magnificent lotus was much more important than the seven-petaled magnificent lotus. Two seven-colored magnificent lotuses, it was still easy for Tanjio and Lu Yushi to divide them. However, there was only a single nine-petaled magnificent lotus. How were they supposed to divide it? Not good. The expression of Lu Yushi, who was planning to discuss the distribution of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus with Tanjio, suddenly changed. His body was about to dodge. However, an extremely heavy strike smashed onto Lu Yushi's head. Bang! Like a rubber ball, Lu Yushi was smashed flying. He ruthlessly smashed into the courtyard's stone wall. The stone wall immediately cracked. Not only were the cracks long, they were also very deep. The strange thing was that the surface of Lu Yushi's entire body started to ripple. The heavy strike to his head actually only caused his head to crack open and blood to seep out from it. Lu Yushi rushed out from the large hole in the wall with a lightning-like speed. A pair of golden gloves appeared on his hands. Tanjio's scarlet sword-like eyebrows were raised. He sneered and said, "Lu Yushi, your defense is truly powerful. Back then, when we were in the Devil Murder Realm, my attack was the strongest, whereas your defense was the strongest. Even now, when faced with an all-out attack from my mid-quality heavenly divine artifact, you were only injured. Admirable, admirable. Tanjio, you actually attacked so viciously all for the sake of that nine-petaled magnificent lotus." Lu Yushi's expression was extremely ugly. From an outsider's point of view, Lu Yushi did not appear to be seriously injured. However, Lu Yushi himself knew very well that he was already extremely lucky to not have died from Tanjio's all-out sneak attack. Currently, he only had 60% of his strength remaining. Under Tanjio's scarlet eyebrows, his gloomy eyes were flickering with traces of red light. "Lu Yushi, your soul's yuanying has also been affected, right? How much strength do you have left?" 50%. 60%. Haha. Lu Yushi, seeing that you and I have fought for so many years from the Devil Murder Realm to the Divine Realm, we also have some feelings for each other. If you leave now, I'll spare your life," Tanjio said magnanimously. Lu Yushi's expression turned ugly. His silver eyebrows were knitted together. With a deep voice, he said, "Tanjio, we have always been enemies since we were still weak. Even after 10 billion years, we have always been fighting. We ascended together and reached the heavenly deity level at about the same time. Right now, both you and I are mid-level heavenly deities. To be honest, I have even considered you to be my close friend in the bottom of my heart. I even have a dream. I dream that we will both become god kings one day. That would be interesting. However, I truly never expected that for the sake of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus, you would actually launch a sneak attack on me. In all these years in the divine realm, we have also fought against each other several times. I discovered that your attacks were not ruthless at all. I had thought that after all these years, you would be like me and consider me to be your close friend. However, it would appear now." Lu Yushi's voice contained a trace of grief. "Close friend." Tanjio was startled. His expression also changed. However, Tanjio sneered. "Haha, what sort of joke are you talking about? I, Tanjio, have a close friend? Humph. Humph. Those who obstruct me, I will eliminate them. In the past, the reason why I didn't attack you ruthlessly was because firstly, I didn't have certainty in being able to kill you. Secondly, having an opponent would allow me to progress faster. However, this time, I reckon that the nine-petaled magnificent lotus is at least as precious as a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. For it, I would naturally attack ruthlessly. Are you going to flee for your life right now, or are you going to fight me for this treasure? Make your choice." Tanjio said coldly. Lu Yushi, who only had 60% of his strength remaining, was still a threat to Tanjio. If Lu Yushi was determined to die, then it was likely that Tanjio would only be able to kill him by seriously injuring him. Lu Yushi took a couple glances at Tan Jiu, nodded slightly and said, "Very well, this 9-petaled magnificent lotus is yours. Let me go." In a room not far from the courtyard, Qin Yu was currently watching all of this. After Qin Yu learned about what had happened, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This Lu Yushi is likely thoroughly disappointed. He had originally thought that his opponent was a close friend. Who would have thought that he would attack so ruthlessly? Soon after, Qin Yu calmed his state of mind. The divine spear waning snow has absorbed less than 1,000th of the dark and yellow energy. However, in order to kill Tan Jiu, I can only rely on the divine spear waning snow. Qin Yu had already made his preparations to attack. Even though the divine spear waning snow had absorbed less than 1,000th of the dark and yellow energy, the might of the divine spear waning snow had increased by a lot. This was something that Qin Yu was able to clearly sense. The underground mansion's passageway. After Tan Jiu pressed the button, the passageway leading to the bottom of the Black Dragon pool opened. Lu Yushi directly walked toward the entrance of the passageway. The entrance of the passageway was right beside Tan Jiu. Right at the moment when Lu Yushi was 3 meters away from Tan Jiu, Lu Yushi suddenly burst forth. His fists immediately emitted dazzling golden light. At the same moment when Lu Yushi attacked, the 9-section whip in Tan Jiu's hand turned into a long rod and smashed toward Lu Yushi once again. Bang! Lu Yushi's 2 golden fists smashed onto the 9-section whip at the same time. The bodies of the 2 people trembled and they were sent flying backwards. Coldness filled Lu Yushi's face. Tan Jiu, you are truly ruthless. You simply did not want to let me go. Instead, you wanted to mount a sneak attack on me again so that you could kill me even more easily. Am I right? Tan Jiu was not embarrassed in the slightest, even though he was seen through. He sneered and said, "Lu Yushi, enough of your superfluous words. I have mounted a sneak attack on you. Aren't you also mounting a sneak attack on me? Earlier, when you said that you were my close friend, I reckoned that you were lying." Lu Yushi said coldly. "Before you mounted a sneak attack on me, I had thought of you as my close friend. However, the moment you mounted a sneak attack on me, I knew, even though we had known each other for over 10 billion years, you were still as vicious and merciless as before. Thus, I knew that you would definitely not let me go this time around. Thus, I wanted to mount a sneak attack on you first. Consider yourself lucky." Seeing this scene, Qin Yu was unable to refrain his shock. These 2 people were truly ruthless. That Tan Jiu said that he would let Lu Yushi live. So it turned out that he wanted to mount a sneak attack on Lu Yushi again. Lu Yushi did not bother with superfluous words. He rushed forward once again. As for Tan Jiu, he also rushed forward with the 9-section whip in his hand. These 2 people knew each other's strength very well. Thus, their attacks were extremely fast. Even without using their spatial domains, the courtyard was actually not damaged at all. With his spatial power, Qin Yu was able to clearly sense the astonishing strength of the 2 people in close combat. Wherever the 9-section whip and the boxing gloves passed by, the space in that area would be completely distorted. The 2 people's heavenly divine power and power were completely condensed on their weapons. Their attacks were extremely frantic. Pow! 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 Lu Yushi's body would be struck by the strange 9-section whip from time to time. However, Lu Yushi's skin would occasionally undulate like ripples and easily block the attacks. His defense was truly abnormal. Several tens of afterimages appeared in the courtyard. It was as if several tens of Tan Jius were fighting against several tens of Lu Yushi. In an instant, they had exchanged blows over 100 times. If this close combat continues, how long will it take for it to end? Qin Yu sighed in his heart. However, right at the moment when Qin Yu was sighing in admiration, Qin Yu's expression suddenly changed. Clones. That's right. Tan Jiu had suddenly created 2 clones. Due to the fact that the 2 of them were fighting too fast, they had created so many afterimages. With 2 additional Tan Jius, if one were to use their eyes, it would be impossible to distinguish them. Both Qin Yu and Lu Yushi had discovered the two clones. The two clones immediately rushed toward Lu Yushi. Like two madmen, they surrounded Lu Yushi from both sides. One could only hear boom. It was as if several hundred heavenly thunders had exploded beside one's ears. A portion of the entire underground mansion had started to collapse. Qin Yu was hiding in a corner of the house. A pillar above his head smashed into the ground beside him. However, Qin Yu did not pay attention to it at all. His attention was completely focused on the courtyard. This Tan Jiu is truly ruthless. He actually detonated 2 of his clones. Qin Yu was extremely shocked. Tan Jiu's 9 clones could all be considered as his true body. To lose 2 of his clones all at once, he had truly made a great decision. "You're still not dead?" Tan Jiu's cold voice sounded. In the courtyard, Lu Yushi was kneeling on one knee. His body was covered with blood. He was coldly looking at Tan Jiu, who was before him. "Tan Jiu, could it be that you're vainly trying to kill me with only 2 clones? Have you forgotten that my strongest point is my defense?" A mocking smile appeared on Tan Jiu's cold face. While his defense was indeed powerful, the self-detonation of his 2 clones had caused Lu Yushi's injuries to become even more serious. Roar! Lu Yushi suddenly raised his head and roared. Rays of light began to shine from his head. Immediately, the space within the entire courtyard seemed to have frozen. Tan Jiu's expression also changed. "You! Let's die together." Madness flickered through Lu Yushi's eyes. Tan Jiu knew very well that at this moment, Lu Yushi had ignited his soul yuanying. Soul yuanying was the material form of one's soul power. The amount of energy it possessed was truly astonishing. The energy of soul yuanying immediately erupted. His divine awareness immediately reached its strongest state. His control over his spatial domain also became even stronger. At the same time, Lu Yushi unleashed his final, hysterical divine awareness attack at Tan Jiu. Divine awareness was one's soul power. One's soul power was capable of attacking one another. Merely, this sort of attack was akin to harming one's own soul power. Unless one was determined to die, one would not use this sort of attack. "Ah!" Tan Jiu roared angrily. In an instant, he turned into 7 clones. At the same time, 3 of his clones started to shine. Even their heads started to shine. Those 3 clones directly rushed toward Lu Yushi. It was extremely difficult to refine clones in the divine realm. The reason why Tan Jiu was able to possess 9 clones was because he possessed 9 heads. This also allowed him to turn into 9 souls. Only clones that possessed souls could be considered as true clones. When the first 2 clones exploded, Tan Jiu had retrieved the souls of the 2 clones. However, for these 3 clones, he had ignited the souls of the 3 clones. "Ah!" Madness filled Lu Yushi's eyes. As for the 3 clones, their eyes were also filled with madness. An explosion even louder than before sounded. Boom! Mid-level heavenly deity Lu Yushi and the 3 Tan Jiu clones were all annihilated. At the same time, an even more serious collapse occurred in the underground mansion. The entire underground mansion was in a complete mess. Chapter 534. 3 clones self-destructed. In addition to the 2 clones that self-destructed at the beginning, Tan Jiu had already self-destructed 5 clones. And now, only 4 clones remained. These 4 Tan Jius were all staring at the source of the explosion with bright and piercing eyes. At the same time, his spatial domain covered the entire courtyard. All of a sudden, the stones that were rolling or falling from above stopped. The entire courtyard was in a state of complete stillness. Tan Jiu's 4 great clones frowned for a moment. Then, a smile slowly appeared on their faces. "Lu Yushi, you've finally died." Only by seriously injuring Lu Yushi with a sneak attack and then self-destructing 5 clones did Tan Jiu manage to kill Lu Yushi, who possessed astonishing defense. At the moment when Tan Jiu killed Lu Yushi, he felt relief, sadness and other complicated emotions. The four great clones instantly fused into one. Tan Jiu walked over to the location where Lu Yushi exploded. At this moment, there was a damaged battle armor, a storage divine artifact and a pair of mid-quality heavenly divine artifact gloves on the ground. These were Lu Yushi's remnants. It was precisely because he discovered these remnants and Lu Yushi's soul ignition yuanying earlier that he was certain that Lu Yushi had died. Soul ignition yuanying, even if no one attacked him, he would likely only be able to survive for several breaths of time. Qin Yu's spatial energy from his universal world had been locked onto Tan Jiu the entire time. I must kill him with a single strike. At this moment, this Tan Jiu has yet to completely lose his vigilance. This is not the best time to launch a sneak attack. When he goes to pluck the 9-petaled magnificent lotus, that will be the best time to launch a sneak attack. Qin Yu's body slightly arched. He was completely focused. He was ready to unleash his strongest attack at any moment. Tan Jiu put away Lu Yushi's remnants. He felt carefree in his heart. After killing Lu Yushi, not only did he obtain a mid-quality heavenly divine artifact and all of Lu Yushi's treasures, at the same time, the 9-petaled magnificent lotus was completely his. Tan Jiu walked over to the pond where the 9-petaled magnificent lotus was. The intense battle from earlier did not affect the 9-petaled magnificent lotus in the slightest. The 9-petaled magnificent lotus was still emitting a faint black light. Especially its sparkling and translucent black lotus core, it was extremely attractive. Tan Jiu stepped into the pond. Although this unitary heavy water was powerful, it was unable to kill heavenly deity-level experts. This unitary heavy water is truly cold. Tan Jiu's entire body quivered. After that, Tan Jiu extended his hands into the bottom of the pond. Tan Jiu needed to pull out the 9-petaled magnificent lotus from the bottom of the pond. He did not dare to pull out the lotus leaves. At this moment, Tan Jiu's attention was completely focused on the 9-petaled magnificent lotus. This is the moment. A long spear suddenly appeared in Qin Yu's hand. The originally black and simple divine spear waning snow now had a faint dark yellow color to it. There were very few of them, just like a few tiny dots. The divine spear waning snow, the divine spear waning snow that had absorbed an extremely small amount of heaven and earth energy. Teleport. Qin Yu suddenly appeared behind Tan Jiu, who was bending over and extending his hands into the first origin heavy water. With a flash, Qin Yu's divine spear waning snow pierced through Tan Jiu's head as if it was piercing through leather. The divine spear waning snow had two auxiliary abilities: body splitting and soul devouring. Bang! Tan Jiu's head instantly turned into fine powder. As for Tan Jiu's body, it turned into 7 or 8 pieces. However, those 7 or 8 pieces actually turned into 3 Tan Jius in an instant. Qin Yu was shocked. Why isn't he dead? His head has completely turned into fine powder. The soul within it has also completely scattered. Why are there still 3 clones? Qin Yu was shocked. As for Tan Jiu, he was even more shocked. Tan Jiu had never thought that he would have his head blasted off by someone without him noticing. It's so close, yet worlds apart. It's that Qin Yu. Tan Jiu immediately understood. Fortunately, when I am not fighting, I will split my soul into 9 parts and place them in different parts of my body. Tan Jiu was extremely cunning. His soul was capable of splitting into 9 parts. Normally, there would only be 1 part of his soul in his head. As for the other parts of his body, such as his chest, dantian, arms, the other 8 parts of his soul were all hidden in different places. This was a method that Tan Jiu used to prevent himself from being killed by a surprise attack. This time around, this technique had saved his life. Qin Yu had only destroyed one of his soul fragments, as well as the jade-blooded Jin Dan that belonged to that soul fragment. When divine power transforms into heavenly divine power, it will form a jade-green-colored Jin Dan. This jade-green-colored Jin Dan is called the jade-blooded Jin Dan. The jade-blooded Jin Dan is the core of the heavenly divine power. With the soul yuanying as the core of the soul, the jade-blooded Jin Dan as the core of the heavenly divine power. In the minds of heavenly deity experts, it would generally be the Soul Yuanying holding the jade-blooded Jin Dan Qin Yu took a glance at the 3 clones. These 3 clones were all holding 3 section staffs. These 3 section staffs were formed by the 9-section whip. Even Qin Yu had no choice but to admit that the craftsmanship of this 9-section whip was very high. Qin Yu, you actually killed one of my clones with a sneak attack. However, you no longer have the chance to do so. Last time, I was unable to kill you, but this time. One of the clones sneered and said. At this moment, Tan Jiu was still filled with confidence in being able to kill Qin Yu. In Tan Jiu's heart, Qin Yu was merely a low-level heavenly deity who had merely relied on the remarkable ability, so close, yet worlds apart. Once he, Tan Jiu, attacked with his full strength, this Qin Yu would undoubtedly die. 3 clones, I must kill all of them. Not a single one of them can escape. Qin Yu began to think. MN, you're actually not using that heavenly divine artifact sword. Tan Jiu, who was on the left side of Qin Yu, said with a frown. And right at this moment, Qin Yu's figure suddenly appeared beside that Tan Jiu on the right side. With a shake of his right arm, the divine spear waning snow in his hand began to spin and thrust forward. Wherever the divine spear waning snow passed, even the divine realm space would have a hair-thin spatial crack. Humph! This Tan Jiu on the right side was extremely confident as he used the 3-part stick in his hand to block Qin Yu's spear. From Tan Jiu's point of view, his mid-level heavenly divine artifact would be sufficient to block Qin Yu's high-level heavenly divine artifact. However, Tan Jiu's expression suddenly changed. His 3-part stick trembled and then cracked open. As for that spear, before Tan Jiu's astonished expression, it directly pierced through his neck. Break! Qin Yu shouted angrily. Tan Jiu felt a strange energy spreading through the wound on his neck. After that, his head and chest were all turned into fine powder. His soul Yuanying and his blood jade Jin Dan were also turned into fine powder. The complexions of the other 2 Tan Jius turned pale. At the same time, their eyes were wide open. The first reaction of these 2 Tan Jius was to flee. Of the 2 Tan Jius, one was rushing toward the entrance of the tunnel, whereas the other Tan Jiu was rushing toward the opposite direction, toward the underground mansion's inner room. What sort of weapon is that? It's not a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. Is it even more powerful than a high-quality heavenly divine artifact? Tan Jiu felt that his heart was trembling. Could it be the legendary Grand Mist spiritual treasure? Tan Jiu's heart was filled with fear. The great name of the Grand Mist spiritual treasure was something that ordinary deities would not know about. However, Tan Jiu, a mid-level heavenly deity, had heard of it before. Merely, he had never seen it before. Or perhaps, he would not be able to recognize it even if he saw it. Trying to run? Seeing the 2 Tan Jius fleeing toward the opposite direction, Qin Yu instantly made the decision to chase after the Tan Jiu who was fleeing toward the entrance of the tunnel. Qin Yu felt that the Tan Jiu who was fleeing toward the underground mansion's inner room must, at the very least, open up a tunnel in order to escape. This would require some time. This amount of time would be sufficient for him to kill the other Tan Jiu. Teleportation. Teleportation. After 2 consecutive teleportations, Qin Yu arrived at the interior of the tunnel and just happened to block Tan Jiu's path. Huff! Tan Jiu's first reaction upon seeing Qin Yu was to unleash his spatial domain. Then, he smashed his stick toward Qin Yu. Qi! The divine spear waning snow rapidly rotated and pierced forward. Like a dragon emerging from the sea, the tip of the spear possessed a bit of dark and yellow color. The sealed spatial domain was simply unable to stop the divine spear waning snow. When the attack was strong enough, even the spatial domain would be useless. After all, the current divine spear waning snow was already capable of creating minute spatial cracks in space. Bang! The 3 sections of the long stick were once again forcibly broken apart by the divine spear waning snow. The divine spear waning snow continued to pierce toward Tan Jiu's neck. Tan Jiu, who already knew that he would not be able to stop the divine spear waning snow, directly released his soul Yuanying and jade blood Jin Dan from his body. However, Qin Yu waved the divine spear waning snow in his hand. A weak dark and yellow aura surged out from the tip of the spear. The aura directly enveloped the Soul Yuanying and Jade Blood Jin Dan. In an instant, they were turned into fine powder. There's one more. Qin Yu did not care about the corpse before him at all. He teleported once again. After teleporting twice, he arrived at the underground mansion. Qin Yu's universal world spatial power began to spread out. Qin Yu teleported 3 times with lightning speed and searched through the entire underground mansion. Only then did he discover that the situation was bad. With a movement of Qin Yu's body, he arrived at a study room at the back of the underground mansion. At this moment, there was actually a passageway on the wall of this study room. Qin Yu felt a burst of anger in his heart. A mistake, a mistake. This Tan Jiu has already been in this underground mansion for who knows how many years. How could there only be a single passageway? Although it has only been a short period of time, with his speed, he is likely already several tens of li away. My spatial power is only capable of searching within a range of 100 meters. Without an accurate direction, how am I supposed to find him? Qin Yu was completely unable to do anything about it. There was nothing he could do about it. This study room was located at the very back of the underground mansion. The room that Qin Yu was originally hiding in was rather far away from this place. Thus, Qin Yu simply did not discover that there was a secret passageway in this place. He had failed at the last step and allowed one of Tan Jiu's clones to escape. Forget about it. Even if this Tan Jiu is extremely lucky. However, so what if he managed to escape? Qin Yu did not really care about it. Although he discovered the secret of my teleportation, would others believe him if he were to tell others about it? Teleportation was a remarkable ability that only God Kings possessed. This was the iron law of the divine realm for 120 quadrillion years. Even if Tan Jiu were to tell others that someone possessed a remarkable ability similar to teleportation, how many people in the divine realm would believe him? Qin Yu also knew in his heart that although there would not be a lot of people that would believe him, it would still be troublesome. However, Tan Jiu had already escaped. Thus, Qin Yu could only console himself like this. With a flash of his body, Qin Yu arrived in the courtyard. Seeing the 9-petaled magnificent lotus in the unitary heavy water before him, Qin Yu displayed a smile on his face. For the sake of the 9-petaled magnificent lotus, a mid-level heavenly deity died. As for the other mid-level heavenly deity, 8 of his 9 great clones were lost. Qin Yu took a glance at the 9-petaled magnificent lotus. Then, his gaze turned to the divine spear waning snow in his hand. Although he had imagined the might of the divine spear waning snow, Qin Yu was still overjoyed when he actually used it. A mid-level heavenly deity was using a mid-quality heavenly divine artifact, whereas he was using his divine energy to use the divine spear waning snow. However, even with this being the case, the divine spear waning snow still managed to break his opponent's mid-quality heavenly divine artifact. It was already comparable to a second-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure to begin with. And now, its might has increased by a lot. I reckon that even if its might is inferior to a first-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure, it's not far off. Qin Yu thought in his heart. Furthermore, the current divine spear waning snow had only absorbed a very small amount of the dark and yellow energy. Once it completely absorbed the dark and yellow energy, exactly how powerful would it be? Just thinking about it caused Qin Yu to become excited. If I didn't use the divine spear waning snow and only relied on the high-quality heavenly divine artifact divine sword scarlet blood, killing Tan Jiu would simply be a dream. However, by relying on the divine spear waning snow, I am able to trample him. A good weapon is truly different. Qin Yu felt the benefits of an exceptional weapon even more. With an intention, the divine spear waning snow returned to the universal world and once again began to absorb the dark and yellow energy. The divine spear waning snow is the same as teleportation. Unless it's absolutely necessary, it's best to not use it. The deeper one hides one's trump card, the more effective it will be. Qin Yu thought in his heart. After that, Qin Yu looked to the pond before him. With merely an intention, the universal world spatial energy enveloped the pond and the nine-petaled magnificent lotus. After that, the nine-petaled magnificent lotus and the pond of unitary heavy water both disappeared. They had arrived in the universal world. As for Qin Yu himself, he had also disappeared from the underground mansion and entered the universal world. Qin Yu stood on a grassland. The unitary heavy water and nine-petaled magnificent lotus were floating before Qin Yu. In the universal world, everything changed according to Qin Yu's will. With an intention, the unitary heavy water separated from the nine-petaled magnificent lotus. By refining the core of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus, one would be able to obtain a magnificent lotus clone. The magnificent lotus clone possesses the unitary heavy water domain. The toughness of its body even surpasses that of a high-quality heavenly divine artifact. Qin Yu felt a burst of carefreeness. What attracted him the most about the nine-petaled magnificent lotus was its core. Clones were very difficult to refine. That was because true clones required souls. How could ordinary people possibly be able to separate their souls? However, the core of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus was different. The core of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus was born from absorbing grand mist spiritual energy. The entire core of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus was a soul without consciousness. After Qin Yu successfully refined the core of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus, he only needed to leave a trace of his consciousness in it to obtain a clone. Furthermore, Qin Yu felt that the battle power of that clone might be even stronger than the main body. Let's combine this unitary heavy water with the unitary heavy water from the dark star. With an intention from Qin Yu, a ball of unitary heavy water floated in the air. At the same time, there was a ball of golden elemental heavy water and a golden bead beside the ball of water. That golden bead was extremely special. According to Qin Yu's estimation, it was impossible to refine it unless one's soul formed into a nascent soul. Right at the moment when Qin Yu was pondering, Amen? Qin Yu opened his eyes wide in shock. That golden bead flew toward the nine-petaled magnificent lotus by itself. At the same time, the black core of the nine-petaled magnificent lotus shot out a ray of black light. As for the golden bead, it also shot out a ray of golden light. The two rays of light actually began to intertwine with each other. Chapter 535. The nine-petaled magnificent lotus's black lotus core and the golden bead started to emit light at the same time. The black light emitted by the black lotus core and the golden light emitted by the golden bead were unceasingly intertwining with each other. Like a water pipe, the two different types of energy were actually being transmitted to each other. The black light was absorbed by the golden bead. As for the golden light, it was absorbed by the black lotus core. Seeing the scene in front of him, Qin Yu was extremely confused. I have never heard of this golden bead before. Why is it that when this golden bead encountered the nine-petaled magnificent lotus, such a change would occur? Qin Yu had read many of the golden scrolls from the bewitching god temple in these past years. He had especially memorized all kinds of rare medicinal herbs, ores, and so on. However, he had never heard of this golden bead before. With an intention of his mind, Uncle Fu appeared beside Qin Yu. Uncle Fu was still deducing the formation arrays in the Zhonglan's realm when the scene before him suddenly changed. When he saw Qin Yu, he immediately bowed and said, "Master, what matter does Master have?" "Uncle Fu, look at this." Qin Yu pointed to the golden bead and the nine-petaled magnificent lotus. Upon seeing the nine-petaled magnificent lotus, Uncle Fu was immediately shocked. He said in shock, "This, 9 leaves, could it be the nine-petaled magnificent lotus? What is this golden bead?" Uncle Fu was unable to conceal his shocked expression. He looked to Qin Yu and asked, "Master, this nine-petaled magnificent lotus is extremely precious. This golden bead also seems to be precious. How did Master obtain it?" Hearing what Uncle Fu said, Qin Yu was slightly disappointed. Evidently, Uncle Fu did not recognize this golden bead at all. However, Qin Yu still pointed to the nine-petaled magnificent lotus and said, "Uncle Fu, this 9-petaled magnificent lotus was something that I was fortunate enough to obtain from the Black Dragon Pool. As for this golden bead, I obtained it from the immortal, devil and demon realm's Dark Star realm. Uncle Fu, I wish to ask, have you ever heard of or seen this golden bead before? I've seen this golden bead before. However, even though they're both golden beads, they're not necessarily the same thing. Master, tell me about the characteristics of this golden bead. Uncle Fu asked. Qin Yu was overjoyed. Uncle Fu seemed to know something about the golden bead. This golden bead is extremely cold, and there is a golden liquid around it. Beyond that, there is first yuan heavy water. I also knew about the golden liquid. It was the metal elemental heavy water, which was even colder than the first essence heavy water. But what exactly is this golden bead? I've searched through all the scrolls, but I couldn't find anything. Qin Yu said helplessly. In order to investigate this golden bead, he had spent a lot of time searching for information. It's accompanied by golden elemental heavy water? Uncle Fu looked at the golden bead in shock. He saw that the golden bead was exchanging energy with the lotus heart of the 9-petaled magnificent lotus. Master, why is the lotus heart of the 9-petaled magnificent lotus connected with the golden bead? Are you the one controlling it, Master? No, it happened naturally. Uncle Fu, do you know anything about this golden bead? Qin Yu looked at Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu frowned and shook his head. I don't know. But for it to be accompanied by golden elemental heavy water, it should be a grand mist spiritual treasure. However, I've followed Old Master for so many years, but I've never heard of a cold attribute spiritual treasure that looked like a golden bead. Hearing Uncle Fu say that he's never seen one, Qin Yu was slightly disappointed. However, he was already prepared in his heart. Thus, he only nodded his head. Master, why don't you refine this golden bead? Uncle Fu asked curiously. This golden bead is too cold. It actually has the ability to freeze one's soul. According to my estimation, only those who have reached the nascent soul level will be able to refine this golden bead. Speaking of this, Qin Yu thought of his soul's realm and sighed. Unfortunately, I've been a peak high-level deity for so many years. Not long ago, I researched formations for over 100,000 years and made some progress in formations. However, my soul still hasn't made a breakthrough. Uncle Fu comforted. Master, from high-level deity to heavenly deity, this checkpoint is extremely difficult. In the entire divine realm, who knows how many high-level deities are trapped in this checkpoint? Master, you'll know once you see how many high-level deities and heavenly deities there are in the Black Dragon Pool. Qin Yu lightly smiled. How could he not understand this principle? Merely, after being trapped at the peak of high-level deity for so long, Qin Yu was still a bit anxious. It would seem that I'll have to specially research and comprehend the spatial comprehension left behind by Senior Zhua Qiumei. Qin Yu made a decision in his heart. When my formation array research reaches level 4, I'll first break through to the heavenly deity level. Although Qin Yu had reached level 3 formation arrays a long time ago, after training for so many years, he was only able to set up the higher level formation arrays among level 3 formation arrays. As for level 4 formation arrays, he was still unable to set up them. Qin Yu was able to sense that the transformation between this golden bead and the 9-petaled magnificent lotus ought to be complementary to each other. It would benefit both of them, so Qin Yu did not try to stop it. Master, when you're refining the divine spear waning snow, why didn't you place the divine spear waning snow into the Zhonglan's realm to refine it? Uncle Fu suddenly asked. Uncle Fu knew that Qin Yu was using the dark and yellow energy to increase the level of the divine spear waning snow. Uncle Fu thought that since the second layer of the Zhonglan's realm would be able to save 100 times the time, why didn't he enter the Zhonglan's realm? Qin Yu shook his head helplessly and said, the divine spear waning snow is able to enter the Zhonglan's realm. However, the dark and yellow energy is unable to leave the universal world. Speaking of this, Qin Yu was also very confused. The divine spear waning snow had been absorbing for over 1,000 years in the universal world. However, It had only absorbed less than 1,000th of the large lump of dark and yellow energy. According to this speed, it would definitely take a very long time to complete the refinement. Qin Yu wanted to move the dark and yellow energy into the Jianglan's realm to save time. However, the dark and yellow energy was unable to leave the universal world. Qin Yu also had a sort of feeling in his heart. The growing universal world seemed to have a connection with the dark and yellow energy. Merely, this connection was something that the current Qin Yu was still unable to understand. Qin Yu had a premonition in his heart that when the universal world completely matured, he might be able to understand the secret of the dark and yellow energy. Currently, Qin Yu only knew that the dark and yellow energy could be used to refine artifacts. Uncle Fu, let's enter the Jianglan's realm first. Qin Yu said to Uncle Fu. Immediately, the two of them disappeared from the universal world. In the second layer space of the Jianglan's realm, Qin Yu and Uncle Fu directly appeared outside of Qin Yu's courtyard. Qin Yu turned around and was about to enter the courtyard. Uncle Fu immediately said, "Master, there's a matter related to young Master Kuro that I need to tell you." Xiao Hei. Qin Yu's figure suddenly stopped. He turned around and looked to Uncle Fu. With a frown, he said, "You said Xiao Hei? What's wrong with Xiao Hei?" Uncle Fu wanted to say something but hesitated. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "Master, I am also unable to explain young Master Kuroa's situation clearly. It's just that in recent days, young Master Kuroa's training has entered into a special state. This old servant also does not know if this is good or bad." Amen. Qin Yu immediately grew anxious. He stopped asking Uncle Fu and directly teleported to the outside of Kuroa's training location with Uncle Fu. On top of the lone peak. One side of this lone peak seemed to have been cut by a blade. It was extremely steep. Kuro wore a white gown. His eyes were closed as he stood on top of the lone peak. He held the cloud-piercing spear in one hand. Occasionally, black spear silhouettes would burst forth. Qin Yu merely observed for a moment and discovered something strange. The restriction of the Jianglan's realm was very low. With the speed of Kuroa's spear, he could instantly thrust out tens of thousands of spear silhouettes. However, the current Kuroa's spear thrust was not fast. Furthermore, Kuro had thrust out so many spear thrusts. The speed of each and every spear thrust was different. Master, young Master Kuro has already closed his eyes and trained like this for over 10,000 years. In these 10,000 plus years, young Master Kuro had been thrusting his spear like this the entire time. Young Master Kuroa's spear thrusting speed was also not fast. He also did not use any divine energy. This old servant was also a bit worried. "That's why I decided to inform Master," said Uncle Fu. Qin Yu was also unable to see any benefit from Kuro thrusting his spear like this. In the divine realm, there were indeed people who unceasingly practiced drawing their blades, thrusting their spears and so on. However, each and every one of those people's speed had reached the limit. Those people were all seeking the limit of speed. However, what about Kuro? His speed was not fast. It was only a medium speed. Furthermore, sometimes it would be faster and sometimes it would be slower. Qin Yu was certain that Kuro would not go mad. However, what use was there in training like this? Qin Yu felt a burst of anger in his heart. He looked at Uncle Fu and angrily said, "Uncle Fu, why did you only tell me now?" Uncle Fu hurriedly said in a panic, "For the past 10,000 years, Master had been deducing the array. This old servant did not dare to interrupt Master. Furthermore, this old servant saw that young Master Kuroa's training, although there was a problem, he would not go mad. Therefore, I only wanted to wait for Master to come out of seclusion before telling Master. However, when Master came out of seclusion, Master went out again. Therefore, this old servant waited until now to inform Master." Seeing Uncle Fu like this, Qin Yu knew that it was wrong for him to be angry. Furthermore, he had sensed the change in the black dragon pool and immediately went out. Uncle Fu did not have time to tell him, "Uncle Fu, it's my fault. However, Xiao Hei is a brother that I grew up with. Qin Yu looked at Kuro in the distance and was also anxious. Xiao Hei! Qin Yu suddenly shouted. Kuro did not respond at all. He still stood on the lonely peak, constantly thrusting his spear at a normal speed. It seems that Xiao Hei is completely focused and has entered a special state. Qin Yu had no choice but to use his divine sense to transmit his voice directly into Kuro's mind. Xiao Hei, stop for a moment. Kuro's thrusting motion suddenly stopped. Then, Kuro opened his eyes. Seeing Qin Yu, Kuro's face was filled with joy. His entire body flashed and appeared in front of Qin Yu. He said in ecstasy, "Big brother, long time no see. However, big brother, I was just cultivating for a while." "Why did you interrupt me?" "A while. You've been in that state for 10,000 years. Qin Yu said helplessly. 10,000 years? Kuro opened his eyes wide. Soon after, Kuro closed his eyes and sensed for a moment. He nodded. Indeed, it's been 10,000 years. I didn't expect time to pass so quickly. Qin Yu suddenly noticed a change in Kuro. Xiao Hei, you've reached the peak of high-level deity? Qin Yu only noticed Kuro's progress at this moment. Qin Yu remembered very clearly that 10,000 years ago, Kuro was only at the peak of mid-level deity. How did he catch up to him in such a short period of time? Kuro was also stunned. He was also confused for a moment. How did I reach the peak of high-level deity? Last time, I was only at the peak of mid-level deity. Although I felt that I was about to break through, how did I reach the peak of high-level deity in 10,000 years? Qin Yu suddenly thought of a question. Kuro's cultivation method just now seemed to be some kind of special cultivation method. Kuro's rapid progress might have something to do with it. Thinking of this, Qin Yu could not help but feel happy for his brother. Kuro, how did you practice your spear on the lonely peak for 10,000 years? Qin Yu asked. Kuro shook his head and said, I can't explain it clearly. One day, when I was practicing my spear on the lonely peak, I suddenly had a very mysterious and special feeling in my heart. Then, I chased after that feeling and unceasingly practiced my spear. Today, I have a slight harvest in my heart. Moreover, I have a feeling that this cultivation method that I discovered, if I continue to practice it, should be very powerful. Qin Yu's eyes lit up and he said, Xiao Hei, try using your spear on me. Kuro's eyes also lit up. Haha, good. Big brother, you can try some of the things that I have figured out over the years. After saying that, Kuro reached out and grabbed the ground. A stone was immediately cut into a long spear. Holding the stone spear, Kuro stared at Qin Yu. Qin Yu did not dare to be careless. Just like Kuro, he also grabbed a stone spear. Big brother, you have to be careful. Kuro's eyes burst with light. Watch out! With a loud shout, the stone spear in Kuro's hand attacked. The moment Hei Yu struck out with his spear, Qin Yu felt as if his brain had stopped working. The stone spear's speed did not seem fast, but Qin Yu felt that his speed was even slower. He struggled to move the stone spear in his hand to block Kuro's spear. Stop! Qin Yu suddenly spoke. Big brother, what's wrong? Kuro asked in confusion. How was my attack earlier? This is a bit of comprehension that I have accumulated over 10,000 years. I feel that what I have comprehended now is still very little. I believe that with the accumulation of time, it might become a lot better. Qin Yu looked at Kuro in astonishment. Even when he fought against Tan Jiu, Qin Yu did not have this sort of strange feeling. Kuro's spear attack was clearly not fast. Yet, when faced with Kuro's spear, it was very difficult for him to block it. Qin Yu did not understand. Qin Yu knew that if he were to fight against Kuro in the divine realm, if he were to not use the spatial power of the universal world and only use the same weapon as Kuro, he might not even be a match for Kuro. Xiao Hei, you are stronger than me, Qin Yu said in a gratified manner. Big brother. Kuro could not help but be startled. All these years, on the path of cultivation, Ho Fei and Kuro had always looked at Qin Yu's back. They had always discovered that the gap between them and Qin Yu was growing larger and larger. Never did they expect that Qin Yu would admit defeat himself today. Train properly. Walk this path. Qin Yu said encouragingly. Qin Yu was actually mistaken. When he was at the Origin Realm for the stellar transformations, Qin Yu was still able to use the Origin power. When he reached the Universe Realm, he was only able to use the spatial power. The universal world was something that Qin Yu had cultivated. It was Qin Yu's ability. In his heart, he felt that if he did not rely on the universal world and powerful weapons, he would not be a match for the current Xiao Hei. This sort of thinking was simply too extreme. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.